Hey everybody, welcome back to another lovely edition of the Over Sharon Show with my awesome, lovely co-host Sharon, and we have a guest again today. I could probably stop saying that because we've been having guests for so long, and it's pretty obvious when people look and they see the other person. But anyway, we're going to start the show like we always do with a quote, and today's quote is, "Only a person who has passed through the gate of humility can ascend to the heights of the spirit." And that's by Rudolf Steiner.
Good quote.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, here I go, pulling a card. See what I get. Oh, look, the 8 of Pentacles. This is a good one.
Ooh, we just got the 9 of Pentacles
Yes, we did.
with Davin on last week, even though in real life it was yesterday for us. Ooh, I like that one. That's cool. And, it's funny. That's a really giant sync because I was just watching Owen Benjamin for a little bit when I got home from running my errands, and he was talking about the whole Wooden Nickels Ewar situation with Tartaria probably being a lie or whatever. And he was showing how some guys just make stuff these days, like craftsmen and stuff. And that really reminds me of that, and what I like. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, isn't this card about perfecting your work or like?
Yeah, it's like a mastery level because you're at the 8. So, the 8 is kind of like the infinity symbol. So it's pretty much the point in mastery where you get it and you're good to go and you can put the display on. You put your work up for display to the world, basically. So, and you're there showing everybody how you're doing it. You're kind of sharing your craft as well. You're oversharing it, if you will. But
Indeed. Yeah, I used to get that when I was doing a lot of pulls. When I was doing readings for myself last year, I was getting that card a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah. A lot of Pentacles.
Joe and I live streamed last night for people watching this now. It'll be a couple weeks ago. So go back on the channel. It's there, Joe. And we were actually doing the whole thing where we talked about the tarot and how it could be bad, and like astrology and all that stuff, like could be if you start to like get attached to it and idolize it and all that stuff, So yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah. I did readings for myself up until I just was like, okay, I don't feel like I need to do this anymore, like all the time. I just do it now whenever I feel like I want to answer. I want to answer.
You're describing drugs. I just do it, when I need a little pick me up.
Yeah, just here and there.
Did you guys get introduced to each other, by the way, I'm assuming through the bear community, but did you kind of like connect at first through tarot?
Yeah, actually we did.
Yeah.
We totally did. And this is Nick, everybody. Nick, NB Austin.
Sorry, I spoke up too early.
Something like that. Oh, you're totally fine. But I'll answer that. Yeah. And we'll talk about you in a second. So Brandon and I, yes, old wise bear. That's right.
Okay,
named by olive tree bear, our dear friend Alex from Greece.
That's correct. And I'm neither old or wise.
You're older and you're wiser.
How dare you? You may be to some, you never know. Like to a child, you're like, wow, this guy's wise. So,
I'm probably one of it's funny how that came up because like when I first started talking to him, he basically reached out to me because I had posted like a sea shanty for my books that I was inspired to do because my friend asked me to do a sea shanty for something else. And he heard that, and I guess he was just following me through the bears. And at this time, I had been a fan of Owen for a while, but I wasn't super active. I wasn't really active at all, honestly, in the bear community. And he reached out to me when he heard that video, and he asked me if I wanted to write lyrics for him. So that's kind of how the Beartaria sea shanty started. But yeah, when we first started talking, he said I need a bear name. And I knew I needed a bear name. I just hadn't gotten around to it yet. And he's like, how would you describe yourself if I was to describe you to someone else? And I was like, well, I've been a bear for a while, but I haven't had a name. And so then he like contacts someone and he's like, I described you as an old time bear. And I was like, well, I'm not old and I'm not wise, but that's pretty funny if I make my name Old Wise Bear. So I'll just go with that.
Go with it.
Yeah, that's kind of how it worked out. He described me as like a old time bear. So
There you go.
Yeah.
And then through you and through Olive Tree Bear, I met you, and we started doing songs together, sort of.
That's right.
And
sort of. We want to get you more in on it. I mean, it just haven't gotten around. We have like a couple. I mean, we've got so many. The thing is with him is because he's been on like a kind of break for a while.
yeah.
I mean, we released probably like 4 or 5 maybe songs, but we have like 20 more. I mean, like that.
I know
that just we never got around to publishing. So
yeah, there's a ton more, and I'm totally up for helping out and doing that. When I say kind of, it's because it was almost like you and Olive Tree Bear, Alex, were doing stuff, and then Alex would send it to me, and then I would do some stuff, and then he would put it together. So it's not like you and I had really a lot of contact at the beginning until we kind of started to like talk, all 3 of us together, to work out on the songs and stuff. But yeah, at the beginning we didn't really know each other that well. So
yeah, there's a lot of people that have been involved that I had no idea. I don't know if Joe Gagan got around to telling you guys the story with him. Did you guys ever hear the story about my dad? Connection to him?
Yes, please do tell the story, because it's a very cool story.
So like Olive Tree Bear, like you were saying, is basically like the puppet master. He's kind of like especially when we first started out, like he was just trying to connect with just anyone to make music with. And I think I was probably just the most willing person at first. Right. And, but as we kept making songs, like he started sending them to people. And I guess one of the people that he sent them to was Joe Gagan, who's Telecaster Bear, who I didn't know at all at the time. And so I think the song like Walk of One got published at one point, and I sent it to my dad, and my dad's like, my friend just sent me the song already. He's like, did you make this with Telecaster Bear? And I was like, no way, dude, no way. That's crazy. And so my dad, like Telecaster, has been like a person, like he makes guitar pedals. He's made them for like 20 plus years. And apparently like Joe and him go way back. Like they go back as far as long as they've been both making pedals. And Joe's like, your dad's like the only person I trust with my pedal sound and stuff, because they're both like super bluesy guitar players. Both like my dad's really good at guitar. And so like, I mean, it's one of the craziest syncs I've ever experienced in my life. It's like pretty wild to have connected with your dad's friend through music is insane.
Through the Bears, small freaking world.
Yeah.
Insane.
Is your dad aware of the Bears, or is he aware of Owen or anything?
He became aware of it. I mean, when that kind of happened, he's like, how do I get a bear name? So I think like him and my parents and my, most of my family, the part that's not from like New York are all pretty based, I guess you could say. So like, they're bear adjacent. Yeah. So so he wanted to become part, especially once he found out that there was like so much musical people in it. He got pretty excited about that.
Okay, so tell us about your, you said the people that are not from New York. Is that where originally you guys are kind of from? And we mentioned this offline, but I'll mention it now, that you're also Greek heritage, like, gosh darn it, Alex. I keep wanting to say Old Wise Bear, Olive Tree Bear. You're Old Wise Bear.
I'm the famous one. Just kidding.
Yes. So you and Alex are both of Greek heritage, and tell us about that.
Yeah. That was a joke, by the way. I'm his sidekick. He's the man. I can't believe how talented I can't believe that not only how talented that guy is, like he reached out to me to make a song, and I was like, I guess I'll make a song with you. And then I heard one of his tracks and I was like, oh my God, how did this happen? Like, how did I get this lucky?
Nice guy.
He is like one of the nicest people, but yeah, I grew up in Long Island, New York. So I have family like there and here in Texas, and I think like 75% Greek or something. So like my dad's whole side is super Greek, and some of them are Greek Orthodox, and then my mom's side is pretty mixed. But yeah, you have like a different family dynamic, I guess, depending on where your relatives live. I have so many cousins and aunts and uncles and stuff. So so there's a pretty wide spectrum of people in my family. Some, like a lot of them definitely are not Greek Orthodox, but yeah, I mean, like that was another thing about Olive Tree reaching out. That was just, it's the craziest of coincidences. I mean, these things that happen, like when you start following like this path, and you guys can definitely speak to this too, but like once you start following like a more moral type of life, like the people that you come in contact with and the things that you do are just like, they blow your mind like every day. Like the amount of talent that's in this community is out of control. I mean, it's out of control. Like you can go in just that chat alone, and like Woodshop is one of the most talented people I've ever seen. Like the guy
he's ridiculous.
Play guitar incredibly and carve wood incredibly and just all this stuff.
Draw.
And yeah, I mean everything. I mean that's one of the things he was saying when he was on your guys' show, that like he was 3 years old and he drew some kind of like
no, he was like he was like a year and a half old and he drew like a set of trains or some stuff. Like what?
Yeah, it's crazy. And like, and now I'm editing kind of editing. I'm like giving him feedback on his book, and like for a first time writer, it's ridiculous. I mean, the guy's just ridiculous, but that's how kind of most people are in this community too. Like I heard Brandon, you were saying you write, Sharon sings really, really good. I mean, it's just like, no matter where you look, I feel like when in my past life, you know, if somebody came up to me saying, "Here, you want to hear my song?" I'd be like, I'd listen to it, and I wouldn't be, you know, usually blown away. But it's just anytime anyone comes up to me with anything here, it's like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I hear you. Did you know that I was in Connecticut?
You live there now? Yeah, I think I remember you saying you live there now. Yeah.
Yeah, right across from Long Island. So I see it very often because I'm on the shoreline. So I'm always like, it's over there somewhere.
There they are. Those bastards.
They're over there drinking their Long Island iced tea. I see them.
You're using our accent too. The Long Island iced teas over there.
Oh yeah. I've had this character I've done my whole life. I did it when I was in the Marine Corps also. They actually used to call me Bobby because that's what I called it then. But and I did comedy. He's got the lawnmower. He cut the lawn yesterday. He's just happy to have it. And that's the driveway. But anyway. Boomas. Yeah, so I did comedy. I started in 2013 and I did it till about 2020. I got on and off with it in 2018, but in 2020 I was ready to do it all over again. I started an open mic, and then we all know what happened.
It's gonna be a great year.
It's gonna be great. But yeah, actually it was. But I did some voices, but I never incorporated that alter ego. But I've been working on a lot lately, and I want to get into and do it because I've always been able to make people laugh, especially when I do that voice. Like today, I was on the phone because I got into a little car accident the other day. Some guy kind of blew a stop sign and hit me, and then he ran. He was like a 70-year-old guy. He like drove away, and then they caught him down the street. Jeez. And he had insurance. So they gave me a rental. So I called Enterprise, and I was talking to the lady, and I forgot what she said. But I was like, "That's what she said." And she started laughing like I used that voice. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I hope it didn't offend you." She's like, "No, I wish you were on speakerphone. That was hilarious." It just comes out of me sometimes. Like I can't even stop it, you know, but it's great because I've learned that when you do it in a voice like that, or I have, I think I've showed it on the show before, but I have a little puppet, and he's supposed to be a Moses puppet. But the reason I got him is because he looks like a prophet. So I'm going to kind of like say he's an old time prophet or whatever.
A ventriloquist, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so my friend who's been doing comedy a very long time told me this really interesting story. He said he was watching an older guy do ventriloquism, and he's on stage and he's cutting on this guy really bad in the audience. He's like picking on him. The guy gets up mad and he punches the puppet instead of punching him. And then like things clicked in my head, and I was like, wow, I could get away with saying so much in front of a normal audience with a puppet, because
with an accent and a puppet,
especially with the accent. Yeah. And I could kind of hide my voice, but I don't even think I have to. I think it'd be funnier if I wasn't hiding my voice. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, I'm excited about it. But that's the thing. I could do comedy. You know, I'm a DJ, a wedding DJ. I'm very good at entertaining people and stuff like that. I love to draw. I do these shows. Like, all of us are so, and then on top of that, we have to figure out how to get our stuff out ourselves. So I figured out how OBS works. I figured out how Zoom works. You know, I figured out all these other things. how to build a website, all these things. And people will ask me, they're like, how did you do that? I'm like, I just went on YouTube and some 12-year-old kid showed me how to do it. Like basically, you know?
No, yeah, I've experienced a lot of that, especially, with writing books. It's like you have to do that. And your quote about humility is it's like when you do all this kind of stuff and you put yourself out there like that, you better, have some humility, because in the beginning, it's like no one's going to give a crap about anything that you're doing. But then you keep building and building and building. And by the time that you get to the point that you guys are at, like you're saying, like you've got this whole portfolio of stuff, and now it's just even just having that big of a portfolio, like people will look to you like you're a resource, and you are. I mean, you have become one through experience, but for the longest time until you get to that point, you just have to be, head down, and you have to believe in yourself a lot. And the people in this community, it's like I didn't know like what in the past, like I have one friend in particular, one of my best friends, and he is one of the people I would say in my life who, before like the Bears, is just always doing and doing and doing. And no matter what creative endeavor I think of or he thinks of, like I would get involved and help him, or he'd get involved and help me. And I didn't know like what it was at the time really that kind of how to identify that in a person, right? Like, how do you find people like that? Because I just always wanted to find more friends that are like that. And whatever it is, the Bears have it. It's just maybe I lean towards like the morality side of things, because that's kind of one of the most, I guess, prominent features that I guess you find in most Bears, and usually they're pretty religious / spiritual type people. So maybe it's something to do with that. But yeah, I mean, the fact that it was organized for me is insane to me. Like I remember too, when I first started writing books and I was working on stuff like building a website and all that stuff. And one of the things you'd look up is like marketing, for example, right? And it's an ugly thing to think about. Marketing is an annoying thing. You don't want to be the marketer, right? But when you're producing stuff and you know that you are good at it and you believe in it, like it's just it's not really a matter of trying to sell anyone on anything. It's like really just what I've kind of figured out with marketing is it's just like making friends, like and those friends can benefit from what you have, like a comedian, like I would love to see your stand-up stuff if you have recordings of it, because I want to laugh, like I want my day to be better. And it's not marketing if you tell me like here's where it's at, but it is in a way, right? It is like the same principle. But one of the things that in researching like marketing, for example, that I would find is they would say like find a community that exists and sell your idea and present the ideas to a community that can benefit from it. And it's crazy because I'd read that in books. I had no intention of that in my head at all. And then Olive Tree Bear reaches out to me and I'm suddenly part of a community where it's not even benefiting my like sales as much as it is my life, but people also care about what I care about in my community here. So it's like, it's crazy. It's those things kind of build on top of each other. If you just do, and then find other people that like to do what you like to do, then you can like build something out of that and you become a resource, like you said.
Yeah. That's really good. What I always hated, I'll let you speak in a second, Brandon. What I always hated about marketing was that it felt like at least where I have experienced it, like where I used to work, it felt like you were lying, so that's what I hated about marketing, is that it felt like you were lying. But what you just explained is not lying. It's just sharing. It's just oversharing, actually.
You guys have the best name, by the way. This podcast name is perfect.
Thank you. I came up with it myself.
Awesome.
Well, speaking of which, we should tell the story.
Yeah.
Because he was asking earlier.
Yeah, he was asking earlier. One thing I just
about how you guys met.
Yeah.
I just want to say quickly on top of what you said. And the other thing too about this community, which is great, is you're kind of like marketing, but it's stuff that people do anyway because people already watch YouTube. Like for us, they already watch stuff, they already get entertainment. So we're just offering them a better one that makes more sense and resonates more. You know, like Bear
Yeah.
Pelagic Bear, he offers coffee for people. You know, Maggie Plonsky, I get a lot of her products.
Maggie's Home
James,
Essentials.
yeah, Maggie's Home Essentials. James
Shout
from
out.
Grounded Extracts. Yeah, shout out to all these people. You know, I use his stuff. Brother Nature Bear. Yeah, so all
Herbalist
these,
Bear, Tippy Canoe Herbs.
yeah, and
I need to place an order.
Family Fungi is Brother Nature Bear, right? Yeah, I got
Yes.
some of his coffee
Yeah.
recently,
Yeah.
which he does with some kind of different mushrooms in there,
Mushrooms?
puts them in
Yeah.
there. And then also I got Lion's Mane capsules from him too. So it's great because not only is it a better deal, but you know who it is, you know who's making it, and you know their morality, you know, if they could stick around.
100%.
And I think another key element to this bear community is humor, because Owen is funny, but to get his comedy, you have to be a little smarter. You have to be smarter than the average bear, right? Because most people take him, well, some people take him seriously or think he's serious or get offended or whatever, but most of us, we're just ball busters, at least, you know, like when I go to bear meetups and stuff, it's just you're hanging out, you're busting some balls. And that's how you could tell if somebody's like a good person or not, if they could take it. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember like he was talking like his jokes about like the Trinity. Like I know when he people like him and EMJ are like kind of two of the people that like really when I was younger, I was like pretty atheist and I just didn't really think much about any of that because but then, you know, like a couple years back when I first started following Owen and people like him and EMJ, you know, I started to realize like how insane it is to be, in my opinion, now to be atheist. And like within a couple of years of like accepting that I'm a Christian and becoming more like devout in that, like you move more in the direction of that morality, right? But you also need to still stay with the on the humility side, right? Like you're talking about how when he started joking about the Trinity, like the way that it was, I think, super revealing when he started making jokes about that, because even though I came to believe in the Trinity, like even though I believe in the Trinity, like I didn't take his jokes personally, right? Like if he doesn't believe in the Trinity, he doesn't have to believe in the Trinity. But that's kind of like what he's so good at with jokes and extracting the people who don't have that humility, right? It's just like South Park, you know, like they make fun of everyone. If they make fun of you and you can't take it, that's your problem, right? And you don't belong in this community. If once he gets around to you, like if you can't hang, then we don't want to have you around, you know?
Yeah, totally. The Trinity thing, I guess I didn't realize how divisive it was. And I've heard recently through some people that were like diehard bears, I guess, left because of it or whatever. But
yeah,
what I would just say is there's two things I would say. One is God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, all these people, they don't need anybody to stick up for them. They don't need a lawyer. They don't need anyone to argue their case. You know, it's like,
yeah, exactly.
And the other thing I love about
Christian
this is,
apologists.
yeah, it's like there's truth. And if you resonate with that truth, that's all you need, right? It's just I always feel like if you have to prove something to somebody, then there's an issue inside, you know, not to make any judgments, but you know, everyone's on a journey. I get it. But the other thing that I love about the bear community is that I go to these meetups and I'll see Christians with Muslims, and like some people are maybe Buddhists. I'm not even sure. I mean, I'm there. What the hell am I? You know what I'm saying? Like, but we all have this morality and we all know that basically we're not atheists, and we can have that common ground. And I feel like that's what's been keeping people like us apart for so many years. You know, that's really the division is what's going on. And so Sharon and I have this thing where we just prioritize your values that you see in somebody. You know, it doesn't matter if they think we're on a spinning ball or a flat plane or whatever, or does it matter if they, you know, what God they say that they worship or whatever, but it's just their actions and how they are, you know, and that's where we can all connect. And then we can have a fun conversation later if we want about those things. But yeah, and I think Owen's been really good at kind of separating the wheat from the chaff in that degree. You know, it's so funny. He's like, oh, this is probably going to make people spiral, but here we go. Like when he went at bidets, you know, he's like,
it's what I got to do. I got to go, like, like a person who like digs ditches goes to work and they're like, oh, got to dig ditches again. He's just like, oh, I got to make people mad for a little while. And then they're going to respect me after that.
Slaughter sacred cows today. But yeah, exactly. But we could definitely get into how Sharon and I met.
Yeah. We keep sidetracking from that.
No,
Go ahead. Yeah.
Good sidetracks. We're over Sharon. I mean, that's what we do here. So
Let's do it.
Yeah. And I'll just add something before I talk about that is
how dare you? No,
I felt I just take, like you guys were talking about, like Brandon was saying, we prioritize like character and like somebody's values. Like I see the whole morality thing you were talking about, Nick, as like living by the golden rule. So, that's kind of how, or living with accordance to nature and things like that. Those are the kind of terms that we use on the show to talk about that, because I don't know, even morality is kind of a weird word. At least it maybe has connotations that are right. And it's like, but if you say living by the golden rule, doing unto others as you would have done unto yourself, or the apophatic way, which is do not do unto others as you would not have done unto yourself. That is just goes to, it just kind of, I feel like it goes to the root and just says like, this person has good character, because they are good people, and so like despite all those things, I also take everybody with a grain of salt, like, because everybody's going to have their own opinion, their own life path that they're on, their own experiences. Everybody's unique in that way. And we were talking about this in the last episode with Davin, but that we all have our own experiences. No one's going to have the same exact experience as you. So we can take that and learn from each other. And we don't have to, just because someone believes something a certain way and is explaining that to you, doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It doesn't mean you have to, I mean, you just, can you just listen? Can you just be an ear and just listen to them? You don't have to believe them just to talk to them. The whole like division and getting upset about a dumb little thing and fighting about it to me is just like really silly. We talk about it in episode 11 and 1111, the division episode that Brandon always brings up. But those are some of the things that I was thinking about as you guys were talking. But back to how Brandon and I
really quickly, let me get in. And you know what I think it is? I know
we're never getting to this story.
It's all right. It's all right. This is real quick. But what I think it is because like you said, Nick, you were an atheist before, and then you had to face the fact you were wrong. I also was like kind of agnostic for a while, and I had other issues that I had to face the fact that I was wrong, and I actually laughed when I found out. I was so ridiculous that I was behaving. I just started laughing so hard, tears were coming out of my eyes, like uncontrollably. So that's what the common ground is a lot with the Bears too, is because they've been wrong before. So there's always that chance you could still be wrong about whatever you want to argue. You know what I mean? And you're just like, you know what? It's not even worth it, man. Because what if I am wrong? I'm going to look like an idiot. So might as well just, it sounds true. And also truth really resonates when you hear somebody talking. I think you could kind of recognize it. Yeah. But
I was you made me think of something else. And like not having humility is what keeps you stuck in the whole, like, I'm right now. Like I figured it out. I'm done. And if you have humility, you can say, you know what? I was wrong. And we were talking about this in some episodes months ago when Ewar went back on his word and said, you know what? I changed my mind. I was going down the wrong path. I put out information that was not genuine. I was parroting other people. I'm wiping the slate clean. I'm going to try to start from scratch to talk about these topics in a way that if I find evidence for them, then I will show that evidence, but I'm not going to be parroting other people just to parrot them. So like that, there's that whole thing again. And now Owen's talking about Ewar and those guys again. It's like, some people get a little bit polarized by people doing that, like saying I was wrong. I don't know. I personally think it's very brave, and Brandon and I talked about this, like as soon as that stuff came out, I called Brandon. I'm like, dude, dude, it's crazy. And we both said the same thing to each other. Before I even said it to Brandon, I think he said it to me. I'm like, I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I was going to save it for the end, but like I heard this quote I was going to share at the end, like a couple of weeks ago by this football coach. And he said that like trust is truth over time. Right. And it's like been sticking with me for weeks. And when you bring that up, it's like, if that guy who was advocating for Ewar, I guess I honestly didn't hear the most recent episode, but I know what you're talking about. Like with, like they're saying that like Tartaria isn't a thing or whatever, but like if that guy comes out later and says that I realized I was wrong, like that's still truth, right? So you might still, that guy might still deserve your trust. At least he's admitting he was wrong. Where like nowadays, I just started streaming kind of recently more often, and still super new at it. I'm not very very good at it, but today I was doing an episode earlier and I was talking about like what is like the common thread between these people that make like the new Lord of the Rings and make all these like subverted just nonsense stories that everyone just watches and they're just bad, right? And then people criticize them and then they come out later and call you names like bigot or racist or whatever. And I'm like trying to find the common thread, and I think it's just it's that, except the opposite. Like when they're wrong, they never admit that they're wrong. Like they don't reflect on things. They don't look back. Like when we were talking about whether it's us being atheist / agnostic, or for me, like growing up in New York, like a big one for me was 9/11 and thinking about how I felt about Muslims. I mean, I was in third grade during 9/11, so I was obviously programmed to, and growing up in New York, you get this extra sense of emotion every time. I was like a big Yankees fan growing up, and I would watch a baseball game and they'd have the president throwing out the first pitch on 9/11 day, and it's just, you get all this like emotion built up, and you end up thinking that that those people actually are bad. But when you reflect on it later, as if you at least admit that you were wrong, you could, and in Christianity you would call it like repenting, right? But people just don't do that. Some people are just not capable of doing that, and instead of doing that, they'll say that the person who's critiquing them is like, and they'll call them a name or slander them somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I think that's what the bear community does such a good job of, is like Owen says, his biggest thing is like, I might be wrong, but I'm not lying or whatever. That's definitely a common thread. But yeah, back to the maybe this time we'll get to the story. maybe
at some point.
I'm keeping my mouth shut.
Really? Are you sure? Because there was something else I wanted to say, but
go ahead.
This conversation is so good that we might as well just keep bouncing. But
we can keep bouncing.
We'll find a time where it feels right.
It feels right. You're right.
Sharon and I met in a field.
My name means field, by the way. My maiden name means field. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Well, Sharon is a field. It's a
interesting
in the Hebrew Bible or whatever. So
we met
Field of the Fields. Field of the Field was my name. Anyway. Yeah. So dang it. What were you saying at the last? You said something and I wanted to like touch on that. What were some of the last things you were saying?
I mean, mostly about admitting when you're wrong.
Yeah, like repenting and stuff, and people then calling you names. It's like gaslighting, basically.
Yeah, totally. Well, I lost that train of thought, but I did want to say that the whole concept of atheism and agnosticism is something that I want to touch on maybe on a future episode, maybe with Brandon, because it's, to me, the way I see things now, the way I see this concept of God, the creator, whatever you want to call it, it just makes me wonder, like, even what does it even mean to be agnostic or atheistic? And it's like, it's just in a way that I feel compassion for people. Like I don't feel, if somebody says I'm atheist or I'm agnostic, whatever, I'm not judgmental of that. Like maybe when I was like very churchy, I used to be judgmental about that. But like with my new eyes, I don't see that anymore because it's just their interpretation. It's just their view right now because of what they've experienced. So it's not, I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a horrible thing for someone to be like, I am atheist or I'm agnostic. So what? That's your experience. That's where you're at right now. Maybe you always will be. Maybe you'll see something later that makes you see something differently. But I think this whole concept of I mean, I would say maybe atheism is the one that I want to use the term, is based on this concept of God, the way mainstream people talk about God, because I don't see God that way anymore. I don't see God as an external being or force that can manipulate stuff and do, you know what I'm saying? I don't even see it that way anymore. So to me, it's like, well, then what does atheism mean anyway? Like it just, I don't even know. That's anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was very interesting. It made me think of that and just.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of the arguments go against what the false kind of churchy thing puts out there because that's like mainstream. So a lot of these arguments will go against this. And then I'm like, oh, I can easily answer your questions if you actually want to listen with an open mind. You know, it's like, just like, Realm Earth. Like, I love to talk about Realm Earth. We could talk about that later, but it's so easy that everyone else's paradigm, ball Earth, even flat Earth, if you think it's a physical plane or simulation, it's all materialism. You know, it's like, bingo, I got you, so yeah. And I'm able to have compassion for people like that too, because I had that point of view and I understand why someone can fall into it. Because if you look at the world from a certain point of view, it is terrible. There's a lot of bad things happening. You know, it's like, it looks like it's the worst ever. But then once you realize that there might be like a grand plan, that this isn't the end, that we are somehow eternal, then you're like, oh, okay. So I'm just a being that lives for like 100, 120 years. I can't grasp what eternity is at all. There's no way for my mind to ever grasp that. So there's a plan at work. I'm just not aware of it. And then it gets you out of a lot of this victim narrative. And I think that's really victim narrative. And then people not being having gratitude. Gratitude is huge. And I was talking to somebody last night in the chat when I was talking to Joe. There's this lady in there and she was having a really rough time. So she just kept telling us how rough it was. And we were just like, you know what, you could just have gratitude. And paraplegic was in there. I'm like, at least you're not paraplegic, Bear. You have something to be thankful for, And he's like, yeah, you can walk, lady. Like, what the hell? So.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Gratitude.
I mean, when it comes to like any of these types of topics, I 100% agree. Like if I was making fun of atheism, I'd mostly be making fun of myself for having thought it, not someone else for thinking it now. But whenever it comes, like if you want to convince someone of something, I've found, especially since I think COVID has been like one of the biggest blessings in my life, because I've just learned so much about just the way the world works from it. And one of the biggest things that it's helped me with is communicating with people who I disagree with in particular, because I would have people when it first started, right? I was, I'm an actuary professionally. So like my job is to basically project mortality, right? And like most of the time people who do what I do work for insurance companies. They like basically try to project out a person's risk of dying. And then they come up with the price that you'd have to pay in order for for a payout to make sense. Right. And so when COVID first started, I was particularly positioned between that and being kind of aware of these tricks because of Owen, to just immediately, I mean, like right when it began, to be like, this makes no sense at all. Like, and so when that happened, like the woman who is now my wife, right, was at the time my girlfriend, was right at the beginning, not long after that, because she, is a smart person. She woke up pretty fast, but like right at the very beginning, like pretty much everyone was scared, right? And it's understandable to be scared at the beginning. And she sends me like an article by like Vice magazine, which is obviously just a nonsense blog. And it's like this thing is, 3x more contagious than the flu, like just some kind of fear porn thing. And so when that first started, at that time, I was planning on proposing to her. And I was like, if I can't propose to someone who is like, a just fearful all the time kind of thing. I have to convince myself that I'm ready to marry this woman by helping her through this. Right. And so in whatever way I could, I just started posting on my social media and talking to her more about it, just ridiculing it. I mean, just anytime I saw anything that looked like it made no sense, I would either post about it or talk to her about it. And it worked immediately. I mean, like I said, she's intelligent and aware. So she was now, I mean, she is as, laughs about it as much as me. But like during the time of posting those things, I would have so many people reach out to me, just angry, just pissed. And I would either have to do one of two things. Like if it was somebody who I didn't mind like just removing from my social media, I would just do that, because I can't convince everyone of everything. Right. And there's just some people that are not in my orbit anyway. I just was mostly focused on trying to like keep my family's minds clear and stuff. But then occasionally you get someone in your family that reaches out to you. And whether this is a COVID thing or a religious thing, I've found that like, if on the topic of trust, if you don't gain their trust first, then it will just be a shouting match and you will get nowhere at all. Right. And so when it comes to that, like I had two conversations that I learned so much from. And one was with a friend from high school, and he was reaching out to, like, his mom was sick right off the bat, and he lived in a house with like 7 people. And he at the time was so pissed at me for posting questions about this thing, because his mom was sick, right? So I understand like why he would be stressed out. And so this first conversation we had, I just sent him questions, like, so your mom is sick, right? Is anyone else sick in your house? And he's like, no. And I was like, okay, so only your mom is sick in your house. I was like, what has your mom been like up to recently? He's like, well, she's a hypochondriac. And I'm like, okay, so now we're getting somewhere. So she's a hypochondriac while the media is just every single day, right? Like talking about this whole thing she should be afraid of. And so we had this conversation where I just ask questions. That conversation ends cordially because I'm not, pushing back. I'm just asking questions. And 2 weeks later, he reaches back out to me and he's like, dude, we were really good friends in high school. I know you're a smart guy. So I looked into it and you were right about all of it. It's so stupid. And I was like, I felt so proud in that moment, because I realized that I handled a situation well that like you might not have. And the reason why he was able to kind of get to that point is, one, I gave him time to just kind of get to it himself, but also like he trusted me through something else, right? He trusted me because we were friends in high school, or because, maybe I was the smart kid in high school and we were friends, or whatever it was. Like, and then there was the second conversation was like the opposite. Like it was like the girlfriend of someone I know. I'll just leave it at that. And she is like liberal, like super liberal, kind of kooky, but she reaches out to me. Like I post a meme, okay, just a meme. It's just supposed to be funny. And it was like a meme that was like, if you add 132 genders with climate change, how much COVID do you get, or something along those lines. And she reaches out to me and she's like, you do know that there are people that have two sex genes, right? And I'm like, so instead of even responding to like the topic of trans people, I was just like, is that always how you ask people a question like that? Condescending, like that's really rude. Like, and immediately she was just like disarmed, right? It wasn't about like me attacking the topic. It was me just talking to her about the way she's speaking to me. And so, and I think when I did that, I think something inside of her helped her remember that like she's a part of my life, right? She's like a significant other of someone who's very close to me. And so she was able to like rewire herself within the conversation to like, oh, this is a person who actually might deserve my respect. And so you kind of get this level of trust. And, Owen is so good at that because he does it through comedy, right? If you can make someone laugh, you can get them on your side. They will listen to what you're saying more likely. Like I, in the past, would not have half the things he says today. I wouldn't have outright dismissed it because I'm, a curious person, but I'd have probably not explored them a ton. I'd have probably thought it was mostly a joke or something. But like he's so good at earning that trust right off the bat, at least with people who are willing to give it to him, give him the time.
Yeah, 100%, man.
That's funny, yeah. And that whole discussion about like making people laugh, it reminded me of what Brandon was saying earlier about like, even using accents and stuff like that. I feel like I've done that before when you have to call, some customer support or whatever. And I try my best to be kind to them and remove the whole, because they're just the messenger, right? Of their business corporation or whatever. So I do my best not to push this stuff onto them, my being upset about whatever just happened and why I needed to call them. So I try to be, kind and, with the person. And, I feel like I've done that where I just use a silly accent and, make them laugh and they treat you better. They're more kind to you. They're willing to help you to actually find the solution to the problem that you're having. And I've had a really good experience doing that. Just being using laughter, comedy, and kindness with people.
Yeah, and they'll be open to what you're saying. Like if you do want to convince them of something, they'll come to you maybe. And it's better if someone comes to you, right? Like if you have something that you want to convince someone of, it's better if they're like, hey, I saw you talking about this thing. Can you tell me more about that? I mean, like that's kind of, hey, the door's wide open now. If you really do want to try to tell someone about your religion or your this or your that, it's like, but like I said, that's like trust.
Yeah. And it's also, I personally would say more, it's like what you're doing is you're not really convincing them of what you're doing. You're more letting them open their own eyes to see something, right? They might not necessarily have to see exactly your perspective, but you're opening their eyes. You're just allowing them to do it by asking questions, and not bringing any animosity into the discussion. You're allowing them to open their eyes so they can be able to see whatever they need to see, right? And then there doesn't have to be any convincing of anything, right?
100%. Yeah, I feel like that's been, like I said, my journey with people like Owen and EMJ and stuff. Like they don't really even preach much of anything, but it's just like they make you want to learn more, whether it's through laughter or through something else that hits you emotionally.
Yeah. And Owen really makes his life his message, just like Christ did, right? I mean,
is a leader.
Yeah. And he just lives the way. He doesn't just talk it, he lives it, and I think that's really important. So, and what you're saying about like the customer service, I actually had an interaction with a police officer recently because I was in an accident and he's like, are you okay? And all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. He's like, oh, this, too bad about it. I'm like, it's, it's just a car or whatever. And I was like, it's no big deal. And I was just telling him all this stuff. And then he left because the guy fled the scene and they caught him. So he went there to go interview him or whatever. And then he came back and I was talking to him and I go, I bet the guy probably said it was all my fault. I'm like, yeah, it was totally my fault. That's why he ran. And the cop was laughing. And then I said to him, I go, I just, there's a couple of years ago where I decided I'm not going to lie anymore, and he was like, yeah, he's like, doesn't it go way better? I'm like, it totally does. And I basically thanked him for his service because he saw that I was a Marine. I have a sticker. So earlier he thanked me for my service. And I'm like, no, dude, you're the one because, trust me, I wouldn't want to do what you're doing. I think you're doing a fantastic job. And I used to hate the cops. And now I just realize they are what they are, and without them, I might be okay because, I can take care of myself, we'll say, but most of the society would be like, it'd be like Mad Max, you know what I mean? Like, or you just have gangsters in their place, that's basically, you just have a mafia in their place. Because when I was going through the whole ANCAP thing, they would say how, oh, the police and the government, they're just like a mafia. It's like, yeah, they are, because if it wasn't for them, there'd be a worse mafia because of people's behavior. And they can't even drive down the street and not do 100. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I even had to look at my own behavior a lot with speeding and stuff like that. It's like, well, if I want to live in this society, maybe I'll, yeah. So, but it's crazy. It's just, and that's one thing I'm really glad that Owen opened my eyes to, was stuff like that, that it's, yeah, maybe we can live in this ANCAP society if everybody decided to live according to nature or the golden rule or whatever you want to call it. Sure, we could do that. But guess what? That's
They
not
won't.
happening right now, Yeah.
At least not
Yeah,
right.
I've thought a lot about that too. Yeah, I mean, it's like I used to be like full on libertarian
Yeah.
also, and it's just you start to realize exactly what you're saying. It's like right now, like again, COVID is just the perfect example because it's like that's a different like the COVID. I call them like technocrats really throughout my book and just throughout whenever I'm talking about it because it's not just liberals. I mean, like a lot of them are what people call liberals, but there's legit a group of people who think that they can be God like in the world, whether it's by controlling speech or controlling diseases or whatever it is. Like they think that they have this control that they don't even have in their own life. Most of them are horrible people and like really separated from their friends and family. And but they but yeah. And so if it's not a good group of people that are gonna, govern and tell you what the rules are, then it's going to be people like that, right? So someone's going to do it all the time, like, and because everyone has like a metaphysical kind of belief system, right? Everyone's got like an idea of what the world is, and they are going to want that to be what is governed based on, and they're going to if they're in a position of power, they're going to kind of operate off of that. So if we're going to live in a world that's an inevitability, which it is, it might as well be one that's like good, like based on the golden rule or whatever, you want it to be based on. But because like, I don't know. Yeah. The Constitution just doesn't do enough for that. You need kind of like people used to swear on the Bible because, and that worked kind of because it's a metaphysical, like if we all agree on the ideas like thou shalt not kill and stuff, like then we at least have a basis to operate off of. But if we have nothing like that and it's just anarchy or libertarianism, like you said, then it's just whoever is the most popular right now that just kind of just gets to decide what happens, no matter how crazy it is.
Yeah, and all those things are just labels. They're just boxes. It's like, what is anarchy? What is libertarianism? What is all this? Like, it's just a box, and people have just given those boxes things. It's like, I mean, everything can be a box, but like you said, if we could just find something that we could all agree about, but not everyone's going to agree is the problem.
No.
Because some people might be like, well, how do you know what the golden rule is if somebody else thinks the golden rule is this, and it's like,
I just heard a debate about that the other day made by Jim Bob. Was just reviewing he was reviewing someone's video who this guy was saying, like, talking about the golden rule, and he turned it into something else. Like, he was like, basically he said the golden rule, it means that I don't exert my will on you and you don't exert your will on me. But it's like, so that doesn't really make as much sense to me, but that's exactly what you're saying. People can disagree even on what the golden rule is. So it's like, really I think, again, Owen's just got it down where it's just like, you just have to live with morality in your own life and govern yourself,
Yeah. And I think it's something having to do with the age or the time that we're in now, because all these anarcho-capitalists and stuff, they'll quote people like Ludwig von Mises and Murray Rothbard. And it's like, yeah, what they were saying was genius. But the problem is you're not talking about the spirituality aspect of getting there. And maybe there was a time when everybody kind of lived that way, but it's not that time right now. And if they're not going to do that, or they're just going to pretend to say they do it, it has to be like a total shift in consciousness. So right now I feel like it's just a necessary evil to exist in the time that we do, because I think it would, like he says, it would just be way worse if we got rid of because at least we have the Constitution that we can point at and say, oh, we're supposed to be a constitutional republic. At least that's the that's the facade of it, where we don't get that on a day-to-day basis, but at least that's what they're supposed to be. Like you go to one of those communist countries or whatever, they had none of that. So it must have been just, way worse. But yeah, it's way more nuanced, and that's everybody wants it to be black or white, and they don't ever want to talk about the nuances of anything like that, So, but that's where there's so much allure, because there's so much truth in what those guys are saying. You're like, yeah, that sounds great. And everybody can, yeah, that sounds great. There's truth in there, but it's like, yeah, but we still got to go back to step one. You still got to treat your neighbor as you treat yourself. Are you like, hey, Mr. Libertarian, are you watching porn? Do you know where that comes from? It's like, all right, well, guess what? In order to have porn, we can't have the society we want. So,
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess the funny way that I think about it now is like libertarianism, it is great. It is like if in our own community we, like you said, operate under a set of rules, then it's the ideal system, right? Like to treat people, to let people do as they are going to do, if you have that foundation. But if not, then how do you? There's no way to enforce. You have to, in order to maintain libertarianism, you have to enforce libertarianism. And how do you do that? Right? Because someone could just that's like a paradox or whatever. So
it's basically would have to be put into, like, it would just have to come about all by itself, just because everybody had this aha moment. Maybe everybody like ate mushrooms or something, I don't know, whatever it is. But yeah, other than that,
became a bear.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, we don't really know what the history truly is. So it's possible there were times like that. And then people that like societies now, there were just smaller pockets. And then they just figured out after years and years and years how to whittle their way in and get in these positions of power, whatever it was. And then everything changed. Or maybe it was a catastrophe. Maybe it was a reset. Maybe it's supposed to happen that way. There's just cycles. And that's why I just try to say it is what it is. Like what it is, it's like a thing you have to deal with. Like, but what about your behavior? Because like we were saying earlier, when you start to align your behavior and walk your path, however you want to say it, synchronicities do happen, and you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. It just bounces off you. It's like, you don't have fear, you don't have despair, and you're actually working towards something. You're pretty much untouchable until the day you die, which guess what? We're all going to die. So,
not the technocrats at the WEF. They're going to live forever.
Yeah, they think so. Yeah, I could see why they'd want to live forever too, because But at the end of the day, we were talking about this last night with Joe, or I was, and Sharon and I have talked about this. But I think there's more of an it that actually controls the world. It's not really a they. And Owen kind of talks about this. I think there's a certain behavior that opens you up to this frequency. You become evacuated and you kind of just march to the beat of the drum. And last night I was saying, I think maybe there's like the Sith, right? There's one guy that kind of knows what's going on, but like all this stuff, because even if you start to get into Freemasonry, and it's not what people say it is, but when you start to open yourself up to that, I think what happens is you get to that level where then you start to vibrate on that. So it's not like the Freemasons are going around planning all this stuff. It's just that certain degrees will open your consciousness up to that. And yeah, so it's crazy, but it really takes you out of victim narrative, because you're like, these people that think they're doing it, they hate their lives. They like, Owen always says it too. He's like, they have terrible lives, like Gary Rothschild, when he talks about that, like the guy wanted to be a farmer. At least we're free range slaves and we can really make what we want. And honestly, I take it a step further, because I think that once you become a master within, then you're no longer a slave. You know what I mean? And you could be in a jail cell and technically not be a slave because of your mindset. And really the only reason people are able to be puppeted or whatever is because in their own mind, they're a slave. They're a slave to their own terrible master. It's just this voice in their head that tells them they're useless. You'll never be anything. This sucks. Your art sucks. You're never going to be funny, or whatever it is. People listen to it. But if you took that voice outside of your head and you externalized it and made it a person, everybody would be like, that person's an asshole. What are you listening to him for? So
it'd be like, Ira.
It would
look
exactly.
Like Ira.
It's your inner Ira. Exactly.
Oh my God.
It's totally what it is. And once you are able, and it's not always easy, but there's ways to do it and overcome it. And once you're able to overcome that, and then this is something I'm writing about, you cultivate your intuition, which I believe is you could look at it as the voice of God, the voice of the all, whatever it is,
The
this
Holy
that
Spirit
animates,
within you.
yeah, the spirit, whatever you want to call it. Once you are in touch with that, I think that is how the creator speaks to you. And when you can listen to that, you start to walk your path, and then you don't listen to that other voice anymore as much. Maybe it's a small step-by-step thing or whatever, but and then that's when things start to work out, and you have all these crazy synchronicities and all that stuff, and then you're no longer a slave anymore.
You're just trying to hurt
I'm
me.
just trying. Yeah.
I think Ira like starts out in your head, and he has like a microphone, and he's like, whatever you're trying to do, he's like, I suck at this. He's saying like he's saying it first person, like he's trying to make you think it's you saying it. And then once you kick him out of your head, that's when he starts being like, must be nice.
Yeah.
Once you start realizing that it's just him, and you're like, what is wrong with that guy?
And you're just trying to hurt me.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So how do me and Sharon meet?
Yeah, we're an hour in. Let's do the show. Let's do that story.
Yeah, we are like exactly an hour in. Crazy.
Yeah.
And a minute. But okay, so we'll do that. We'll talk about that. So
Perfect timing.
Brandon and I met through the Bertaria Times app. I saw a video that he did with Pasquale Bear, and it was about legal, lawful type stuff. And Brandon had a website called morelawsmoreproblems.com. And I was like, hey, I'm totally on that vein right now, looking into topics like legal, lawful things. So this was like around, I want to say this was like around April of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, I saw that he had tarot stuff on his website. So it wasn't long before I was like, well, hey, I've been hearing Crow. And it's funny because Crow had been talking about tarot stuff for a while up until then. And he was mentioning like the book called Meditations on the Tarot. And he was talking about the Marseille Tarot deck and just a bunch of stuff about it. And I didn't really know much about it, except for growing up with a, indoctrination that all these occult things were evil and bad. And looking into divination and stuff was evil. And so I was just curious because like I had just wiped the slate clean of I just told myself, look, I've been indoctrinated my whole life. I'm wiping the slate clean. I'm opening my eyes fresh. I'm going to approach anything I learn now with fresh new eyes and a fresh perspective. So I was like, okay, so Brandon, why do you think Crow has these ideas about the tarot? Because he did have some, I guess he didn't like certain topics or certain cards. He thought certain cards had been, inverted or like made to look evil or something like that. And so he was like, had this negative view of certain cards and certain decks as well. And I was asking Brandon about that. And he's like, why don't we just do a show? Like, let's just do a question and answer on YouTube, come on my show and we'll do this. So I had an iPad. I didn't have great sound. It's very echoey, kind of, but we did a show. And it was just a regular Brandon Bonanza channel. And I asked him questions about the tarot. And then months later, we're still chatting. We're always having these like gravy-filled conversations on the phone. And we're talking about the sorts of topics that we now talk about on the Over Sharon show. We're just talking about philosophizing about life and what this life is. What demons are, what spirits are, what is all this stuff that we hear about. And Brandon was like, why don't we start a show, call it Over Sharon. It was kind of playful at first. He was joking, we're always over Sharon, and so he's like, we should, jokingly, we should just start a show and call it Over Sharon. And I don't know that it happened right away, but some time passed and he's like, let's just record something. And like, if you don't like it, we can toss it. You don't have to do it. And he recorded it. I mean, he was on his cell phone sitting outside in the garden, and I was still on an iPad with not great audio. And we recorded something and it was acceptable to me. So we posted it, and that's how it started. And 1 week later, we did another one. And 1 week later, we did another one, and it just kept going. And then we had a guest, our friend Adam, and then we had more guests, and it just kept going. And it's what it is now. And we've had amazing guests ever since then.
Yeah, including our current guest.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
But we also, I went on basically a world or a countrywide tour for a month, and we were able to still record episodes and keep them up and keep them going. So once we made it through that, I knew that it was gonna just keep going. Like I was very excited because Sharon is very consistent, and she's like the yin to my yang, for if you want to say it that way, because she's a totally different way than I am. And normally that would annoy both of us, but since we've kind of worked on ourselves and overcame stuff like that, we're able to let those things go and just collaborate where we have like the magic, I guess you could say, or whatever it is. So yeah, it works out well. We have a lot of cool listeners too. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to our listeners. Without them, we would probably still do it just for nobody, but it makes it a lot better that
it wouldn't be as fun.
Yeah, it's way not as fun. It's awesome having them. And we were talking about the tarot, and I basically just told her it's these symbols that are in the tarot, because the way I got into it, because I used to think that tarot was just all a joke, or not a joke, like a scam, right? Because I came into this from atheism or like agnosticism, so I wasn't thinking it was evil really, although I wasn't sure. Like I was still kind of freaked out by Ouija boards, but I just thought it was scamming, and people that knew psychology just could do it to people, and like keep them coming back and all this stuff. That was my previous view on it. But then I started to get into symbolism, basically going through old history, like true history, and then like conspiracy history and what happened. And then, you learn about people like, what's his name? Cecil Rhodes, and all these people, and how they said, if we could teach the world English, we could take it over. He's like, what does that mean? And then you learn about language and all this stuff, and then it brings you to symbolism. And I was like, wow, I started learning about symbolism. And the people that I was learning from symbolism about were like, you got to check out the tarot. Well, I mean, in videos, they would talk about it, because the tarot is basically just a big book of symbolism. And what you realize when you get into it is it just exists in nature. It's just cycles, it's just everything that's out there. But I think people at one time, they put it into maybe even a book, and then it became the tarot, probably so it could be, like you can get it out of the Library of Alexandria, you give it to a bunch of gypsies or whatever. It's just a way for it to survive. And it's like a tool, and like any other tool, it could be evil and terrible and dangerous. Or the way I say is, it's a good tool to kind of use if you're going to use it to heal aspects of yourself, or to just to work on yourself, stuff like that, or maybe help other people and share the ideas. But I never attribute really any power to it. I will say I think the power comes from the synchronicities in this realm. But you could technically pull any card, and I could tell you how it relates to this situation in some way, just because it is nature, And like Joe says, because our friend Joe, got really deep into the occult and what you would say like manifesting, and maybe even like a little dark magic, but not really, because he wasn't really like trying to hurt anybody. And he found that's all empty too, because basically at the end of the day, he's like, I don't know God's plan, so how am I supposed to manifest things, But technically we are creators. We are all manifesting our reality, but to be conscious of it and do like a ceremony and try to say, I want this house, is like something he did. Or, I want this woman, or I want this. It's like, well, what if that's not the plan for you? You could still manifest it, but now in order to learn, like Fortune Saint Germain says, we're here to learn lessons. We can learn them through suffering or through joy. Now you're taking the long way to learn this lesson. And it doesn't matter, because this realm allegedly goes on forever, or whatever it is. So you're just going to keep cycling and get smacked in the face until you finally realize it. So I think that's the major pitfall. I don't really think, I guess you could open yourself up to the dark entities, but I think that comes more with behavior. I think that's something you kind of have to choose to do. I don't think it's going to happen accidentally. I think it happens because just like they say you got to invite a vampire in, right? It's that whole thing where you actually have to make a conscious decision. And everything I've seen since 2020, people are doing this stuff to themselves. No one's doing anything to anybody. So it's as above, so below, or however you want to look at it. And now I find myself from going through Christianity when I was younger, like I was a Catholic, then I was a born again Christian. Then after a while, I was like an agnostic. And then I got into like Eastern, like Buddhism and all this stuff. And then I came right back around to basically Western Hermeticism or mysticism or whatever it is, which is like the roots basically of Christianity. It's all the same kind of stuff and concepts when you're looking at it correctly, you know? So that's why I can dig or get along with everybody, because I've looked at all this stuff and it has a lot of the common thread. It's basically the message of Christ, you know. It's not that hard. He's like, I'm trying to tell you. He's like, I know they're gonna like worship me later and nail me to a cross, but don't worship me, you know, like or whatever. It's like, just do what I'm saying. I'm not saying that people shouldn't or whatever, but it's just the way that they do it. They're like, oh, if you don't accept Jesus as your savior, you know, you're going to hell. Meanwhile, they're going out doing who knows what, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So
well, it's just an externalization of a savior, right? When like if you externalize anything and you think something is going to save you or something is going to be the answer instead of you working on yourself, I think that's where the problem
where it's
in.
like his message will redeem you. You know, if you listen to that message and live your life that way, yes, he will redeem you. But if you just saying, I'm praying he's going to forgive my sins, it's like, yeah, but you're still doing all these terrible things all the time, you know. Now, again, no judgments. It's your life, fine, you know, go ahead and do it. But to judge other people, it's so silly. But that's why I like I said, the bear community, because we just all kind of understand that aspect of it in one way or another, you know. And it's just like, all right, we're here and we're crushing. So
yeah, speaking of like symbolism, I mean, it kind of reminds me of like if you bake a message into anything, right? Like if you bake a message into Lord, like you tell a story like Lord of the Rings, and it's a story that has a lot of truth in it. And if you resonate with that, it's like calling that evil. To call it what you're saying, you know, tarot is evil. It's just a tool, you know. Like it's a thing that helps you. It helps bring you to the greater truth, even though like it's not, I guess, the truth itself. You know, if you worship it as if it's the truth itself, I guess maybe that's where you can go down the wrong path. But
yeah, that's true idolatry, I believe, too.
Yeah.
That's really what they were talking about. Like when they say don't take the Lord's name in vain, it's not that you shouldn't say God damn it. It's that you shouldn't say, hey, if you say God damn it, you're going to hell because God's going to hate you. That's more taking the Lord's name in vain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you sure that's what he said? Because you got to ask him. Like, you know, I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah.
When you guys said that because you mentioned a book and then you said that there's multiple decks. Like, is it are the decks consistent, or is there like different decks, or how does that?
Yeah, there's all types of different decks. The standard one that people usually look at is the Rider-Waite, and then the Marseille tarot deck is said to be the one that's the oldest. That's the one that came out of France. But
this
people,
is kind of what the Rider-Waite looks like.
Yeah, it's like it's set in a medieval kind of thing. You get knights and kings and stuff like that. But so many people have created their own tarot, and they've just used all kinds of like nature or, you know, unicorns, or like, I mean, there's like a gay tarot, you know, so like or whatever. So, you know, that's probably a little gay, but
that's the truest one.
It says it says gay tarot. I could call it gay, right? That's hate speech. It says it on there. It's the gay tarot. But yeah,
funny story. Oh my God, that reminded me of like I was in this bar one time, and with my friend, and my friend is so into beer, like he's like loves making beer and stuff, and so there was this there's this beer called Montucky or whatever, and it might be from Montauk, Long Island, I don't know, but it's called Montucky, and so they have this one, they have this one type that they brand with like a rainbow on it, and people refer to it as gay tucky like all the time, according to my friend, because he drinks beer, so he's like, this is the common thing that they call it. Like even the company refers to this type as gay tucky. And we go into this bar, and my friend's like, hey, can I get a gay tucky? And the guy's like, we don't call it that here. And I'm just like, oh my God, just stop. It's got a rainbow on it. Like, what do you mean you don't call it
Oh
that?
my God.
I
That just reminded me of what you were saying.
I think I might have something with that gay thing, because if I could find something that's called like the Gay Pride Parade, I'd be like, that is so gay. And people are like, I'm like, it's called the Gay Pride Parade. I'm just saying it's gay. It's freaking gay, man. Right? You don't
What
think
else would it
you
be?
hater? Do you hate gay people? It's gay. Like,
That's hilarious.
something like that. Maybe not a parade, but yeah, I could find something. Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah. But to answer a little bit more your question about the tarot, so there are allegedly the Marseille was one of the original tarot decks. I mean, there's a lot of history that you can look into, but it's kind of hard to find. But the Rider-Waite, like he said, is the more common one these days. And then there's like the Thoth deck, which was by Aleister Crowley. It's a lot different. It just has a lot of different looking symbolism. Oh, we pulled.
Do they have like descriptions on the back? Like how do you, I guess, reconcile? Like, do you get the meaning from it, like yourself, or does it come with like, how does that kind of like?
A lot of times when it comes to the on the card, like underneath what it is, or because there's 4 suits, so like in the Rider-Waite, on every card it won't say it, but it'll have, or maybe it has a 6 at the top. I can't remember. So, but a lot of them are different. But most of them, you have the Rider-Waite, right? Yeah. You could tell what it is by the
Like
so it says like a 3, and there's 3 ones. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So it has a little bit of information on the card. And there are, people who teach you how to interpret the symbolism in it. But once you do learn some of those basic principles, you can use your intuition by looking at the card and looking at the symbolism on the card to make your own interpretations about how that relates to, like, if you're reading for yourself, how that relates to your situation. And there's like, when you do, that's crazy, the syncs that come up sometimes. Like I've done readings for people and they're like, they'll see colors on the card. They're like red and white. Like that's the color that represents blah, 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 blah. For me, those are like my 2 favorite colors, or something like, so stuff will just come up and it'll just be synced with whatever's going on with that person's life right at that moment. Or maybe if it's in a past position, it'll be associated with something in their past, things like that. So it comes with time. I mean, Brandon's way better at it because he's been doing it longer, but I'm very new at it. So I still use a book. I'll go reference a book and look at the symbolism there.
And I mean, the one today was like having the things up on the wall that you built, right? I mean, like that's pretty much what we've been talking about. It's like, honestly, it's crazy because it's like, I mean, like exactly like you said, like that's kind of the stage that I'm in right now. Like, because I just, I was at the point where I guess in 2016 or so, I was just like, Owen wasn't even, I don't even think he was called Big Bear yet. And I think I started writing at that time. It was like a little while after I got out of college. I'm like 29 now, by the way, just to set the stage, I guess, to set the stage a little bit. But I had just gotten out of college, and when I got out of college, it's a really weird feeling when you're in school for that long, like your whole life, and then into college, and the way that I thought about it was like, it's like if you're climbing like a mountain and you're looking up and you see like you have peaks that are like set for you, right? Or locations that are set for you, like you should go here next, and then you should go to this summit, and then you should go here, and then you're kind of working your way up and you're looking and you see the top of the mountain, and you have all these things that are set by people before you, like they tell you where to go, which classes to take, which this to do, then that to do, and then you graduate and you get to the top of this mountain and you're just like, now what? Like it's one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through, was just that feeling of like, what do I do next? Like, I mean, you get your job and that's fine, but like, even in that world, it's not your path is not set for you, like how you progress there and what you do next. And you kind of have to learn to build your own mountains. And so like, for me, that's kind of what writing became in 2016. And I definitely didn't start out as good as woodshop is doing now. I look back at my first book and I like cringe in some ways, and you just see how you progress as you go, and you do one and then you do the next thing you like are at the point where I am now, where I just finished a whole and published like the last book in a series and wrote a history book about COVID. And I'm just like, it didn't even it's just been something I've been doing over the years. And then you kind of get the point I'm at now where I'm like done with it. It's just like, holy crap. Like when I sit at my desk, like there's 6 books next to me that I wrote. And those are like those things on the wall in those tarot cards, right? Where you're just like, you can't believe how like far you've come just by kind of setting up your own little, setting up your own little summits.
Yeah. You were working on your craft.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. And
That
perfecting
looks like Tom Selleck with that mustache.
He totally does.
I don't have a mustache that epic, or it looks like he might have a mullet too. I'm not there yet. I'm not that experienced yet. I have like maybe 4 of those things on my wall
Pentacles,
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once I get another one, I'll go with like the mustache.
It'll just appear. You'll wake up and just like me with this hair. That's what I tell people.
Yeah.
Like it just showed up one day. I cut it off and it comes right back. What do you want me to do? Oh.
What about your books, Brandon? You wrote books too, right? What kind of books did you write?
Yeah, so I wrote one book so far, and I'm working on another one, and it's about basically. So what sparked me to do it was watching 2020 unfold, because to me, I was into symbolism and everything, and all of a sudden something hit me once, and I'm like, whoa, this is like the sacred feminine. And I was putting it in those terms back then. It was like being misused or whatever, but now I could see it's just inverted. But it was like the feminine out of control, because everybody was about safety. And then my mind immediately went back to 7-Eleven, that whole incident, that prank. And that was like the masculine out of control, right? It was like the kind of the opposite, where everybody had to march to war to get those muzzies. And now everyone's like, you got to be safe. You got to be safe. Like if one more person told me to be safe, like I would be like, no, safe's not fun. I'm like, I'll be free though. But I'm not, I'm like safe. I'm like, I used to drive a motorcycle, like 160 and 80 down there. Like, I don't want to be safe. That's no fun, And so I also had just went through this major transformation. I used to have pretty severe intimacy issues that led me into this crazy sex addiction. Like pretty much like Owen talks about, I was just never famous, but I was always just at this other level. So, and it's same thing. I wasn't really malicious with it, although there was some times where I had to question some of my behavior. And now I see what it was. It was kind of a hatred of the feminine, really, at the end of the day, because I think of wounds that I suffered when I was younger and the blames that I put it on. But it was all just stuff that happened to me when I was younger, and I was just running off a program. I didn't even realize it. So when I woke up to that, I started to change. I had this, what's known as like a dark night of the soul, where I didn't know who I was anymore exactly. Like, I was like, well, now what am I going to do? You know what I mean? So I had to like go through all this stuff and change my behaviors and just live a different way. So, and they call that shadow work. So I called the book Shadow Worked, because kind of what happened to us, because what I saw what happened was the process I just went through in like 2015, 16, 17, most people were now being put through this inverted process of the same thing. Whereas I had like a rock bottom and a realization. I was like, whoa. And that caused me then to change my behavior. But this is inverted. What happened was people were told to change their behavior and seclude themselves the same way I kind of secluded myself while I was going through this process and changing my behavior. And then at the end of it, then their minds were changed, like it was like the total reverse. So I wrote about that. So basically I talked about my experiences in Marine Corps boot camp, because I was in the Marine Corps in the 90s, and how my behavior was changed then and how it was shaped. And I didn't even do a victim. I'm like, listen, if you want to train people to go to war, this is what you got to do. You're going to put these people in a situation to fight. It would be irresponsible if you didn't basically brainwash them into this. You know what I mean? So I talked about that. Then I talked about this whole like 7-Eleven thing and how I saw everybody wanted to go to war all of a sudden. And even myself, like the first week, I was like, I'm going to sign back up for the Marines. And then I'm like, no, I'm not. And then, the Iraq war is kind of, I didn't put this in the book, but the Iraq war is what really woke me up to all this stuff. Because I was like, I knew, I'm giant into geography, into history, all this stuff. And I'm like, I know Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with this. What is going on? I freaked out when that happened. But anyway, I fast forwarded to then my experience with my severe intimacy issues and what I went through and changed. And then I compared that to 2020, what happened there. And then I wrote a chapter at the end called We Won, basically, because what I saw in the bear community and everybody, I basically saw that we already won this war that we think we're fighting. Because if I'm realizing it and other people are realizing it, that means that they're going to teach their kids. And then in the future, they're going to know. So we already won this war. We just haven't realized that we won it yet. We're like and the way I describe it is like these Civil War battles that we hear about that happen after they already signed the Treaty of Appomattox. Like after the Civil War was done, people in Louisiana didn't know about it. So they all got into the field and LARPed, and people lost loved ones because of this. And the battle didn't matter, and I saw that as the battle that I was fighting. I'm like, that I'm not going to fight anymore. There's nothing to fight for. I'm just going to kind of build. And Owen was a big part of that too, just watching him through 2020. Because I've been watching him on and off since like 2016 or something like that. But at 2020, I became like a daily watcher because I've always loved comedy and just the way he would always just navigate. And, again, and he even says it's like, you don't have to say you don't agree with everything I say, but you're not supposed to agree with everything somebody says, but I find him hilarious, and he's able to, or I'm able to kind of get a different point of view by watching him on certain things. So, so that was basically what that's about. And then the one that I'm writing now is very simplified process of what I went through to exactly do this shadow work or whatever. And I'm calling it shadow working. And it's just about, cultivating your intuition, about that evil voice in your head or whatever, that voice in your head that's you're a terrible master of. So I talk about that. I talk about ways to cultivate your intuition. I talk about tools like meditation, the dangers of meditation, but also what can help you with that, with creating art and how that can help you, like all these different things to cultivate your intuition and to listen to that voice. And then I have a chapter, what else was I writing about? I don't know, I've been writing about it recently, but all kinds of stuff in that area. And I'm trying to make it as basic and simple in plain language as I can. And I don't even really want it to be that long. I think I have like 15 or 16,000 words right now. And I don't want to make it too long. I want to make it so somebody could kind of sit down in a couple sittings or maybe even one and read it. Because it's like I said, these things that the way I had to learn them, they were more complicated, but there's simpler ways to do it. Like you don't have to spend the years that I did. Well, I'm glad I did, but for the average person, because a lot of people ask me about this stuff when they kind of wake up to things or just their behavior or whatever it is. So yeah, that's what I'm writing about. So it's like nonfiction, although maybe someday I'd love to like write fiction or whatever. Or maybe I'm just a fan of it because I love Tolkien. Like
are those published? Is the first one published?
I just have it online in the form of like a PDF, and I kind of give it out for donations right now. But I wrote it in the third person, so I kind of want to go back. No, wait, I wrote it third person, right?
Yeah,
first
like
person,
he.
Yeah, like I refer to myself as the author, and So I think
Okay.
I would like to go through it one more time and change that, and then
You do?
Yeah. And Sharon and I were originally going through it because it really needs to be gone through one more time. But I kind of just got sick of it at one point because I read it so many times and went through it that I was just like, all right, it's good enough. I had a few people go through and edit it, So that's kind of where it sits, because then I started the Over Sharon show and we started to go through it again, but there's only so much you can do in a day, but
how long is the first one?
Was it like 100 pages or something like that, Sharon?
Maybe.
I can't remember off the top of my head. It's not really that long, but
yeah, if you want feedback, let me know. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, I could shoot it to you for sure, dude. In the new
I'm looking
one,
at Olive Trees right now. I'm trying to finish it up. But
Olive Tree's working on a book.
Oh, sorry, no, it's not Olive Tree.
Woodshop.
Okay. Yeah, see, isn't that funny?
No, he's too big. There's no way that guy's got the time to work on a book.
I know. I was like, no, freak. How could he not tell me? I'm gonna get mad at him. How dare he?
I would definitely appreciate that because, again, not to like toot my own horn or anything, but I've sent it to a few people who are into this stuff. People who, like my friend Michelle, who has a business where she kind of does. She doesn't say she heals people. People heal themselves, but she helps them with that. And some other people, and they really like it because of the way it's simplified. So I think I might have a shot at getting it like published big time. If not, I mean, I don't mind just doing it myself, but yeah, I will definitely shoot it to you, and you can let me know. That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any tips on getting a traditional publisher. I know Woodshop's trying to do that. For me, I actually wrote an article for the Beartarian Times. I think the newest magazine it should be in, on like everything that I've learned about writing. And I think I'm probably gonna publish it on my blog soon too. But like,
That's awesome.
but basically, like with traditional versus self, it's really just how much. In your case, you probably will have like a ton of control over what's in it. I mean, they're not going to probably tell you to change anything that's in it. It's just like the thing that self-publishing that drove me towards it is like, if there's something like in the book that I want to update, like a picture of myself at the end of the book, right? Like I could just easily mess with the file, re-upload the file, and make those kind of little changes. So those are kind of the things you need that people would think about there. It's like traditional publishing, you get less of a cut, I guess, but it's also a lot better for market. Like it's hard to market yourself. It's hard to, what's the word? It's hard to advocate for yourself like really effectively and get your thing out there. And so like traditional publisher will probably have better, distribution systems and all sorts of things like that. It's just like I don't even know where you would begin with the process. I guess you just reach out to a couple of people and try to make that happen. But as far as like what editing consists of and like how to fix like chapter formats and stuff, I think I've gotten pretty good at that, because I've worked with professional editors on the first couple books. Like I've kind of stopped because I'm just like, I don't want to dish out money that they're asking for anymore. And I kind of get the idea of like what they do now. And so that's kind of what I've been doing for I'll keep saying that Woodshop, is like, I'm going line by line and I'm not really doing like grammar. If you wanted me to do grammar, I could do that. But like, for him, like editing typically consists of like, you usually do like 3 passes kind of thing, is like you would read through one time and just say like big picture, like what's wrong with it. Right. Like if there's like in the case of your book, you might have I'm trying to think of an example. I obviously don't know your book, but like if you, it might make sense to start with something that happened to you later versus starting with something going in chronological order, or like that would be kind of like the big picture kind of thing that, and then you would have line by line thing is like the second phase, where you take like in the case that's kind of what I'm doing now with Woodshops, where it's like maybe like there's a whole chapter that either doesn't belong, or maybe like this paragraph could be in a different place, or this idea is not consistent with what you said before. And then at the end is like the third phase is like the grammar and stuff. And that's like pretty important to an extent. I guess it just depends on like how, off you are with your grammar, like you definitely don't want to miss like obvious things. But that's kind of why getting feedback is just so important. Like even if you don't hire an editor, it's just like you need people to read it beforehand and tell you like as much honest thoughts as you can. And when they do, it's like it's the nicest thing they can do. Honestly, the funny thing is that having done music with Olive Tree, I mean, I've played music and released music in high school, and I've always been into music. It's like the easiest thing to get someone to listen to your song, right? It's 3 minutes. They just need to, there's no cost to them. It's just, just listen. Do you like it or no? But with a book, it's like the thing that's so hard about marketing yourself as an author, and that it literally just takes a lot of time, is like, if you think about yourself, I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't read a ton of books in a year. Like I read more now, but more for me is like 3 or 4 at best some years, and then like maybe I'll do better than that. Some years it's like 1 or 2, depending on the length of the books that I'm reading. And so and then some people just don't read at all, right? Some people never read books. And so there's already like a shrunken percentage of people that you can get to read. And then, from that shrunken percentage, you need to find the people that are in your genre, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's going to be even smaller. And then from that percentage, then it takes a while, even for those people probably, to finish reading your book. It probably takes like a couple months, right, for them to finish reading your book. So you're not going to get any feedback for a while. So it's a really, it's a process that's kind of probably the reason why the publisher helps a lot, because they're probably super good with like doing scheduled releases and PR and all that stuff. But being an author, like I was saying, with trust over time, like it takes a while, and it takes some patience. Like I'm sure, Woodshop is probably like, what's taking him so long? It's just like, I think I'm editing it as quick as I can, but finding those types of people is not easy. So when you do, like, take advantage of it. And like I said, I'll definitely take a look for you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Honestly, at the end of the day, will just end up doing self-publishing. I just don't want to limit myself, but I don't mind if that's the case, because I already have this message. I could definitely get up in front of an audience and speak about this stuff and kind of be funny and whatever. And I could just go around and sell my book that way also, or with this show, I could sell the book, or I could get it out there either way. So I just need a way, and you could probably help me with that too, but just
sure,
somewhere to find it to get printed and all that stuff. Like I was talking to somebody I know that does it through Amazon, but I'm sure there's other ways too.
Yeah, I can, like, whatever you need help with, I can walk you through that, like finding people to do a cover or doing the cover yourself, depending on how you want to do that. There's like, if you want to do it through Amazon, there's like Amazon, you can enter the dimensions of your book, like how many pages it is and everything. And they give you the size of the cover. They even give you like a template about like what the cover should consist of and everything, that you just basically paste your images over. Nice. It's super intuitive. It's just like, you were saying with building a website, it's just, you kind of do these things over time and learn them over time. And since I've learned them, if you need a resource, just let me know.
Yeah, sweet. I made a cover for my last book, basically, even though it's just, in digital form, but I used a picture that I took of a reflection of myself in the water, kind of. Yeah. It's
nice.
Because I love to take pictures too. So many things I love to do.
Yeah.
Cool.
I used to love to write too, but it's just, as soon as I start, because I was like wanting to blog a lot, and I'd start, like I was telling people in the last episode, I think it was, I started a blog kind of around the same time Brandon started a blog, but I wasn't super consistent with it, because I'm so, I think I'm kind of a writer, but I'm so nitpicky about my writing that I have to go edit 800 times before I actually feel like it's good enough to publish. So when it's finally published, people are like, "Oh, that's great writing and everything." But I'm like, "Yeah, it took 800 freaking years."
Yeah.
So then I wasn't really consistent in my writing. And so, it literally is a practice. But when I started the Over Sharon show, I stopped I started to blog right before, but then I stopped shortly after, because I'm like, now I can just talk about it. I don't have to blog.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing, is like, it's so important to find the things that you can be consistent with and focus on those. Like, another thing around like the idea of marketing is like, I at first would read some kind of blog that was like, if you're an author, you need a Twitter. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll make a Twitter. And then I make that, and I'm just like, I hate tweeting. It's like the most annoying thing ever. And like this platform, obviously being a bear, the way people talk on these platforms just makes me want to vomit. And I don't like social media in general. So it's like, you don't have to do every single thing like that. You just have to do the thing that you can sustain, right? So if a blog isn't that, then live streaming is that. And everybody has like those kind of things that come easier that they can keep doing over time.
Yeah.
And it's just like finding that type of thing. I've had the same thing with a blog. Like every now and then I'll do a blog post, but there's like periods of time where I feel like it's work. And once it starts to feel like that, it's just, ugh.
Yeah. That's what it started to feel like, work.
One thing I could say too about the first book that I wrote, it's not even like I wanted to write it. It's like if I didn't write it, I was going to go insane. Like I had to get this out of my head onto paper just so I stop talking about it and, all this stuff, because I think it's like a birthing process sometimes. And that's what I'm feeling again, because I didn't plan on this. I planned on writing a blog post about victim consciousness. That's what it was. Yeah. So victim consciousness. So I started, and then all of a sudden I had all these pages, and I was like, oh, and then I'm like, well, I could talk about this and this and this. And then, I'm like, I guess this is going to be a small book now. Even the first book was only supposed to be like a booklet, and it ended up being like, I don't know, 100 pages or something. So that's what I would say to you, Sharon. Like, don't even worry about it. One day something might come up where you're just like, okay, we got to do it now. Like just on your own, like Nick was saying here, it's like, it's all about expression. You find ways to express yourself. Some people paint, some people sing like you do, and then some people podcast also like we do. So I feel as long as you're expressing yourself, then that's really what is like the medicine for your soul or whatever. It's like, it's just you're on your dharma, you're doing your purpose, you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're learning all this new stuff, and then you're expressing it in your own way to people, and then they could take that information and do with it what they want. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. That's why we suggest people to do some form of like in the trivium they would call it rhetoric. And I know there's a lot of different ways to interpret this, and Joe was talking about this, but one of the ways I learned is there's grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And the grammar is just the information that's around you that you could take, and then use your logic to see what works and what makes sense together, and then use your rhetoric to express it to other people. And without that step, you can really like go crazy. You end up on Facebook all day like, look at all the stuff I learned, or nobody cares.
Yeah.
So
yeah, rhetoric is super important. That's kind of what I was saying with gaining people's trust through like comedy and stuff. It's like, it doesn't matter how much like with what you were saying about your book that I related to a whole lot is when right before COVID started is when I started writing my like final book in the fiction series. And then COVID starts, and I'm like 3 chapters in, and I'm like, I can't write this book. Like this world is crazier than fiction. I can't write this. Like, I can't think of anything I cannot think of a single thing that I can write that's crazier than what's happening right now. That's on a fantasy level. And so like, for me, because I was, always posting about it and trying to share my knowledge that I had from my career that I was positioned to have, like about what was happening. And I was just saving all these links and documenting everything that was happening. I was like, if I don't write a book about what happened during COVID, like I'm never going to be able to write anything else ever again, like, and at the time too, I had just actually a couple years before published a memoir that my great grandpa had written I published it for my grandpa. And it was just like a story of his life or whatever. And so I was, especially because like once the pressure started to ramp up around, injecting yourself, I was like, I think it was maybe a year ago now, I was actually like sick with a parasite from when I went on my bachelor party, and I went to an urgent care clinic to try to get like tested, and they wouldn't see me. Like they were like, you need to leave because you didn't take a COVID test and you didn't get the shot. And I was like, I probably have a parasite. I just need you to give me a cup and send me home, and I'll just fill it up and come back. I just need you to confirm that that's what I have, so that I can just take whatever I need to take to get rid of it. And they were like, no. And so at that point I was like, it was pretty traumatic, like I was like, might be the world we live in if people don't keep speaking up. And so like that's when I really started sitting down and just every day for just so many hours at a time, just started writing and everything I had documented and experienced, and all the quotes and just everything. And it was like, it's probably as long, or I guess it's not as long as all 5 of the other books, but it's pretty close. And it took like a couple months. And, so like Brandon was saying, when that thing is in you, when that inspiration hits, it freaking hits. And right before that happened, I had that kind of fear where I was like, once I finish this fiction series, what am I even going to write next? What if I can't think of anything to write next? It was kind of like this like concern, but then like COVID happens and I'm just like, okay, well, it's here. And now I don't really worry about it at all, because I'm just like, it'll come, something will come, and I'm just going to want to, I'm going to have to get it down. Like you said. And if not, then, you have music, right? Maybe Olive Tree will reach out to me again, and we'll get started on some of that again. And, the timing usually works out.
Yeah, something I found, sorry, real quickly, Sharon, is like, you have this worry about what you're going to do next. And I feel like if you just focus on the moment, what's going on now, something's always going to come up and pop up, and it's the worry of that can get you distracted or get you off of that. But yeah, it's crazy. Go ahead, Sharon.
And that is exactly what I was going to touch on. Boom. Because we always think like that a lot. So I'm going to tell a story, but I'm going to preface it by saying that, like, throughout my life, I don't know why, but I've always just been able to kind of not worry and just let go and just let things happen.
Must be nice.
And it really truly does bring good. It just brings what nature has for you, what God has for you, right? It's just a little bit mind-boggling, because once I graduated, like you said, you had this fear or worry of like, what am I going to do next type of thing. And I almost like wanted to have that fear too. But then I was like, you know what, I'll just go back to school. Maybe I'll get a postgraduate degree. And so I was doing that. But then I got a phone call from a friend who's like, do you want an interview at this place where I work? And he and I were friends in college, and he graduated a year before me. So I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? I'll just, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And, I get the job, a year and a half later, because I was only a contractor for a little bit, and a year and a half later. So there's an open position. And I just thought to myself, this is not a coincidence. That job's mine. Like, I just know that job's mine. So lo and behold, I get the job. I worked there for many years. When crap hits the fan, June 2020, I get sacked for not covering my smiling face. And I don't panic. I just let go and just let things happen. And it was like one of the best things that ever happened to me. Right. And it just on and on and on. Right. So this whole like letting go, not worrying. And like, to me, it's like, it falls in line with living in accordance with natural law and the golden rule. I'm not harming anybody. I wasn't harming anybody. Living in the best way that I can, and to help others and things like that. And it also ties in with the stuff you were talking about, like telling the truth, being honest. And like when Brandon was talking about the accident, I mean, I had a similar thing in college when I told this story before, but I was traveling to school, and I fell asleep because I had pulled an all-nighter and I was trying to study for this exam. And thankfully I was behind somebody, and we were only like, it was traffic. I was almost at the place where I parked, the parking lot. I'm on the street. I'm only going about 25 miles an hour, maybe at the most. My eyes close and I hit the car in front of me, and cop comes over, because he was literally like right there. It was hilarious. He comes over and is like, what happened? And I'm honest. I'm like, I fell asleep. I was studying for an exam last night and I didn't get enough sleep. And I'm just very tired and I fell asleep. And, he still gave me a ticket. Right. But, first thing I do is I call my eldest sister, because it was her car and it was under her name. So, and she's like, why'd you tell him the truth? And I'm just like, I don't know what else to do. Why'd you tell him the truth? And I'm just like, I don't know what else to do. I don't like, I can't lie. Like, I don't even know what to say if I don't say the truth. So we end up going to dispute it at the little court, whatever, and nobody shows up. So I get away with it scot-free, basically, like doesn't go on my record, nothing. It gets completely dismissed. And it's like, and I always thought to myself, ever since then, I was like, that happened because I told the truth. Like, like nothing, I don't think anything bad was going to happen to me if I told the truth. How could it? I mean, that's just how I saw it. So anyway, that was all prefaced to a story that happened yesterday. It was very, very strange. Okay. So a couple of days ago, I'm grocery shopping and I get my stuff, whatever. I'm going to the car. I put the stuff in the car, and at this place, they don't give you like bags. So they'll just use, it's kind of like Costco. They'll give you a box from their stuff, and then you can put your stuff in the box. Well, I put the stuff from the box into my bag in the car because I'd left my bag on the car. And I was just like, I'll leave the box on the shopping cart and I'll put the shopping cart in the thing, whatever. And I go home. I distinctly remember having my wallet in my hand with my phone as I walked out. Yesterday, and when I get home, I'm like, shoot, I forgot eggs. Like, why did I forget to get eggs? So yesterday in the afternoon, I was like, you know what? Sun's still out, I'm just going to get out of the house. I'll just go get those eggs. I go to my purse. I grab my purse. I look inside the purse, and I had two wallets. I had recently put a couple of things in one, just a really simple wallet I can just grab and go. And I still had the other wallet where I have all my other crap. I look inside, the big wallet is missing. And I'm like, where's that? And I don't panic. I just am like, oh, must be somewhere. I look in the purse. I take stuff out. It's not there. I'm like, oh, must be. I go in my room. I go in the kitchen. I'm like looking for it everywhere in the house. And I'm like, it's not here. Oh, maybe it's in the car. I go in the car. I look. I don't tear it up. I just like quickly glance. I'm like, no, it's not here. So I go back in the house. I do another pass. Like, it's got to be somewhere. I'm not seeing it, And I'm like thinking back, when the heck did I last use it? Must have been yesterday when I went to the grocery store. I remember having it on my way out the door because I literally remember looking at my hand, had my wallet and my phone in my hand. So I'm like, I know I had it. It must be in the car. or something. So I look again. I'm in the car. I'm like, you know what? I needed to go get eggs anyway. I'm just going to go. And I'm talking on the phone with Cody, and he's like, kind of like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'll find it. It's, and I'm trying to tell myself, like, don't go there. Don't go to the place of like, oh my God, you're not going to find it. You're going to have to call all the companies that you're from, all the credit cards in your wallet, and tell them to stop and on all this stuff. And then I'm thinking to myself, well, I haven't gotten any notifications that somebody's used my credit card fraudulently or anything like that. So I'm like, that's a good sign. So, I'm on the way, and I'm still thinking about where could it be? Like, maybe I didn't look on the bed properly. Maybe it's thrown on the bed somewhere and there's clothes or something, and I'm missing it. So I'm heading over there. And then Cody asks me, do you think you left it at the store? And I'm like, I really don't think I left it there, because I had it in my hand, and I don't think I would have set it on the shopping cart, and like push the cart, and like, because I had left the box there, and I'm like, I don't see myself doing that. I just don't remember that. So, and I'm like, you know what? But I'm still going to ask them, because you never know. I'm still going to ask. So I get in the store, and there's almost nobody in the store. And I'm like, where is everybody? Finally, I see a lady at the produce, and I'm like, hi, do you guys have a lost and found? And she's like, yeah, we do. And she's like, what did you lose? And I didn't want to say that I lost any. I was like, well, I can't find my wallet. And so, or I said something on a variation of that. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she's trying to find out someone. She's looking for someone, and she finds someone. Hey, can you call this person? Can you page this person? And then I overhear her say something about there was an email about a wallet. And I'm like, that's interesting. And then I'm talking on the phone with Cody at the same time, because we're still on the phone. And he's like, he used to work at a grocery store when he was growing up. And he's like telling me like what they would do if they found a wallet. And I'm hearing the same thing he's telling me. I'm hearing them say like, oh, go, it's in the safe. Go check the safe, like go grab it from the safe or whatever. And he's like, that's exactly what we used to do. Like if somebody found a wallet, they would immediately put it in the safe, and the manager had the key, was the only one who had the key who could go get it. So they're trying to find that guy, whoever that guy is. Well, that guy comes, and then they're asking me stuff like, what did you lose? Or is it your wallet or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, well, they're like, we have your wallet, or do we have your wallet? And I was like, well, I'm hoping you do, so the guy goes back. Right. And it takes him a while. And I'm like, I'm standing there. I'm like trying not to not go there, not panic. Like, what if and I'm just like, but what would the chances be that someone else left their wallet at the same time? And, cause I was like, what if they come out with a wallet that's not mine? You know what I mean? But then I'm like, I don't think they would do that. I mean, they're probably going to ask me what it looks like. Right. So sure enough, the guy comes out and he looks at me and he's like, what color is your wallet? And I'm like, gold. And then he's like, yeah. And then he hands it to me. And then Cody overheard him. He's like, yeah, we would do the same thing. Like you would, because there were so many scams that people would run all the time. Like they would come and say like, oh, I lost this. And if you didn't ask them like what it looked like or what it was, they would just take stuff, So I freaking must have left my wallet, and I don't know how. And I tried to ask the girls, like when I got back to that produce section, I said, hey, do you know who brought it in? Like, where did I left it or anything like that? And her and this other girl, the cashier, were like, no, we just got an email that someone turned it in. And that was it. Like nobody. And I'm like, well, I guess it's meant to be a mystery, but like, I didn't want to panic. I didn't want to go there in my mind about it. And I just imagined myself finding it, holding it, seeing it again. And I have my wallet back. It was crazy.
That's awesome.
I was so grateful.
Yeah, I've lost and left so many things, so many places, and then was able to find them again. Like it's crazy. I'm so lucky when it comes to that, or lucky, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you probably left it in the car, I bet, or maybe it even fell out of your car or something. It was in the parking lot,
Yeah, I don't even know. It's a mystery, but it was meant to happen for a reason too. And that's what I said as I was like leaving my house. I was like, well, it happened for a reason. I'm not going to worry about it, because even as I was driving over there, traveling over there, I was thinking to myself, if it were the case, if it's the case that I lost it and I'm meant to lose all those things that are in there, that was for a reason. Like that would have been for a reason, and something good will come from it. Like, I just know that it will. Just like, I can't remember who said it in a recent episode that we had, but like, it may look like it's something really bad. I think it was Asha who said like something bad could, or may look like it's a bad thing happening to you, but then if you turn it around or whatever, it actually turns out to be for good. So I just was thinking to myself, whatever is meant to happen is meant to happen here. And so I wasn't going to worry about it. And I was so grateful to get my wallet back. That was such a relief.
Cunning of reason. I mean, it's like for me, I mean, that was basically last year. So like, as I was saying, I was writing that book. And at that time when I was writing it, it was like the height of the pressure, and things were looking like they could be pretty bleak if people didn't like speak up or whatever. But then as I was doing it, it was starting to flip, right? It was progressively flipping. But at the same time, like, I was getting emails from my work that were saying basically like, you need to enter in our system whether or not you got the shot, or else. Like, just, that's what they didn't say, or you'll get fired. They just said you have to do it. And so they said that you had to do it by March 1st of this year. And, I just had this in my inbox for like 6 months, like, you need to do this. And, for all this time, like, I had coworkers who like I'm friendly with outside of work. They're like, did you do it yet? I'm worried about you, dude. You might get fired. And I was like, I'm not doing it. And we'll see what happens. But I mean, like, that was really the first time where like I had that kind of like calm that I guess like you're saying that you're fortunate to have all the time. And I think I've definitely, like, as I've become more conscious of this type of stuff and more, faithful, it's just, you have to believe that things work out for a reason and understand. And if it would have resulted in a firing, good, you don't have to work
Right.
at this crazy company with these crazy people anymore. And fortunately for me, as that date came and went, nothing happened. I had talked to my boss about like a few days before. I'm like, is this the end? And he's like, I think you'll be all right. And within a week or two, like a few weeks later, the company sends out an email and they're like, you don't have to enter your status anymore. Also, there's no more rules to come into the office. Everyone can come in and you don't have to do this or that. And I'm just like, all those poor people I work with, they were worried for me, and they got pressured into this and for nothing. Like, they thought they were going to have the privileges to, go in there and not have any consequences. And really they have all the consequences because they didn't have that kind of like faith that things would work out. And, that even if you did get fired, that there would be a problem, or that you couldn't adjust or do the next thing or go somewhere better. And so, yeah, no, I've been super grateful to learn that from, people like you, that's the way to live. That's the way to live,
It's absolutely your response and your reaction to things. And like you said, belief that everything's going to be like, everything will work out as it's meant to work out for you. But when you panic, you don't help yourself at all.
You welcome it. Like, you welcome it because you might say something to somebody that you shouldn't say. And then they're going to, fire you for something. They're going to come up with a reason to fire you just for freaking out,
Yeah. And you opted out. You're just like, I don't participate.
Yeah. I'm just like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's the best way.
My brother did the same exact thing. He kept getting emails. He works for a certain company that makes razors that you've probably heard of, but we won't say the name. And my mom worked there, and she was able to retire before that deadline because everybody in my family's like, no, thank you. They might not be like bears. Like, my parents are still pretty boomer adjacent, but they're not stupid that way. They're like, this doesn't add up. So yeah, my brother was just like, he's like, I'm just going to ignore it. And I was like, and I told him, like, listen, if it gets really down to it, I even sent him a whole affidavit and all this stuff. He goes, all right, I'm glad I have that. He goes, but I'm just going to ignore it. He's like, they need me too much because of his job. He's like a mechanic.
It's so costly to fire you. And the other thing is none of the pressure was legal. So like, I mean, I know not a lot of people understood the legality of it, but it wasn't even remotely legal. So I was almost like daring them to fire me. I'm like you want to make that mistake for me, like fire me of all people? Like, you know how much research I've done on this? Like, but no, I mean, it's, if you just be calm with people about it, then it generally, it's like I said, I mean, when I talked to my boss about it beforehand, he was the type of person that was like all in, like he literally said at one point, and again, mind you, like, this is your boss. You tend to think of like your boss as like smart, like intelligent and stuff. But he said to me, like, and this is one of the things that really right at the beginning jarred me. Like, I was like, wow, humanity is taking a shift in one way or the other. Like, people are making a choice. He was like, on a call with my old team, he was like, the reason why the flu is going away is because people are wearing masks. Because someone asked, they're like, it is kind of strange that the flu isn't going away. And I was like, that's a bear or bear adjacent. And then, but he's like, yeah, it probably has something. It probably is because people are wearing masks. That seems to make the most sense. And I'm just like, dude, you're an actuary. Like, you're supposed to understand risk. That makes no sense. Like, how can that be happening with the flu, but not with the other thing that's the same thing? Like, but yeah, no, like, and so I had to basically confront that kind of person about it and just be like, look, I don't know if it's open-ended. They're saying I have to do this. It's open-ended. Well, I don't know if I'll get fired or not, but I'm just like letting you know I'm not doing it. and if you're just kind of straight up and not hostile, they just are like, cool. They're not going to push back on you about it.
Yeah.
As long as you stand your ground.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Stand your ground. You don't have to aggress. You just stand. You basically draw the line and you let them cross it, just like Bugs Bunny. I dare to cross that line. It's the same thing. And that's what my brother was doing. He's like, great, let him fire me. He's like, I'd love it. I'll just sue him. And he had that mind frame. And because he had no fear, one day, the same thing, he got an email and they're just like, never mind. And he's laughing like all these people who didn't want to do it, but did it. And then they didn't have to.
No fear.
It was for nothing. That's the crazy thing. Like, they got tricked.
Oh, it was sucks, for something, all right. It was. For
something.
Yeah. It was a test, if nothing else, right? And that's, in the last 3 years, I just wrote this in my letter to Owen. I said I grew an inch, or I gained an inch somehow. And I told Owen a funnier story about it was his fault with his jokes and stuff. But I tell other people that really don't know him, they're like, "You grew an inch." They're like, "Why do you think that happened?" I'm like, "It's because I never covered my face." Or I'll say I never wore a mask, to make it more. And they're just like, oh, I'm like, yeah, you should have tried it.
Oh, I guess I didn't grow an inch. Damn.
Yeah. Did you shrink? You must have worn like 10 of them.
Before we wrap, I don't know if you got what time you guys were planning, but I just want to know, because I want to hear for sure. I don't know that if you went or not, Brandon. I know you went to the festival, Sharon. So if you guys,
I want to talk about the festival.
I want to hear all about it.
Okay. And I just want to tell you too, before I do that, I want you to go to next year's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And
I'm there next year if they're doing it again.
Sweet. And
I already took the time off in my company. They already know I'm not working next year. So
B will be there. And I told Alex, that Olive Tree Bear, that he really, 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 really should try to come. So if, we can all kind of we're
doing his set whether he comes or not. So
right,
he needs to come.
He needs to come. Yeah, I told him that. So it was really cool because in the chat that he actually created for his like stream, like after hours type of streams or whatever, his hangouts, that's how I met you. That's how I met, not exactly how I met you, but that's how I met some other people like Joe Gagan, Woodshop Bear, some of these other guys, Board Game Bear, and who like, they're very into music and instruments and playing songs and things like that. Yeah. And I think it was because of that, and it was you. I think you got it started. So you asked a question in that group, who's all going to the Bear Festival? And I said, I replied that, I wasn't going to probably make it because I was going to have to fly in, first of all, and wherever I flew in from, I was going to have to, and probably it was going to be St. Louis. And if I did, that would still be a 3-hour drive to get to the campground. So, and then upon getting to the campgrounds to camp after that, and I'm just like, I'm flying in, I'm not going to camp. If I'm flying in, that's just too much. It's a lot. And plus I'm just not really a camper because I don't remember the last time I camped.
She's not a happy camper.
So I just kind of expressed that. I was like, if I could find a place to stay, like an Airbnb or something, then, I would totally be willing to go. I would be way more inclined to go if I can find something like that. And Joe Gagan chimes in like, hey, if I find you a place to stay with some bears, would you go? And I was like, I totally would be way more likely to go for sure. And he's like, well, if you go, are you going to sing? Or I think he said, no, if you go, you are going to sing. And
sounds
I was
like
sure.
Talk about a hard close. Love it. Good job, Joe. Oh, did she just freeze or am I freezing?
As long as I know the song. Oh, you're back.
There we go. Yeah, we're good.
Froze a little bit. Yeah. So I said that I could do that. He found a place and he asked me who was coming with me. I told my friend Spoons was coming up from Tennessee and she was going to pick me up in St. Louis. So he found a place for us to stay with a bear family, and they were awesome, just wonderful, wonderful people. And we ended up, well, I was part of the band, which was called the Gravy Boat Orchestra. And the other funny part was that he was on the side looking for a bass player. And I had said, I had thought in my mind, okay, I know a bass player, but he's not, I don't know if he's going to come. So I went and asked him if he would be interested in going. And I said, you might be able to be the bass player for the show. And so he wanted to come anyway, just to try to come. But on the down low, he didn't tell me this, but he wanted to see if we were compatible, because we had been friends on Telegram and Beartari at times for like almost a couple of years. So he was on the down low trying to see if we were compatible if we met in person. So he didn't even care if he was going to be in the band or not. And he's just like, I think I'm going to try to go.
Like, no.
Yeah.
That's for you, Cody.
Yeah, I'll go.
Yeah. So he was like, I'm going to try to see what I can do, get the time off, blah, blah, blah. So, and then I told Joe, okay, I said, I know a bass player. Oh, here's the funny part. Joe had said that some time ago, and I hadn't told Joe anything really. And then he posted it again. Actually, I had found out that Cody could make it. And so then he was going to be able to go. And I was in the shower and I still hadn't told Joe. And I was in the shower thinking to myself, oh, shoot, I haven't told Joe. And then I go to my phone afterward, or my tablet, and I see that Joe had posted in a group that he created for us to start practicing for the songs. He had said, I'm still on the down low looking for a bass player. And I was like, total sync, because I had thought about it probably right as he wrote it in the chat, and I saw it later.
Crazy.
So crazy. So I was like, I have to tell him. So I told him, and he's like, well, is he any good? And I'm like, well, he's a bass player in New Jersey. And
take what you can get, Joe.
He plays in, but he's like, we're just looking for the best. We're looking for pro. And I'm like, I mean, he plays in bands in New Jersey. He's like, he's like, I didn't need to know anything else. Like, that's what I want to hear, like, okay. So he goes and I was like, you're already friends with him. Like, you guys have been friends on Instagram. He's like, all right. So he goes and looks at his old stuff, and he's like, he's better than I could have ever imagined. And then he's like, I feel bad because I didn't know about this whole time I've been friends with him. I didn't even know. I'm like, don't feel bad. He's not like, he's a pretty humble guy. He doesn't like push this. Like, he doesn't show off or anything. So yeah, he got in, and we got to the festival. We met Cody. Spoons and I met Cody in St. Louis. We hung out for a day. We went to the Arch, the Gateway to the West. And then it actually rained really, really hard that day at the campgrounds. And since we had been at the Arch in the morning, we heard that people were like, whoa, it's getting really rainy and muddy out there. So we're like, might as well just kind of chill here in St. Louis before we head out there. So we didn't head out till like the evening, didn't get into the camp area until like late at night, like 9ish. But the next morning we were set to practice, and we practiced in the back of the Ace Hardware, the local Ace Hardware, which is owned by one of the Bears actually. And yeah, that's where I got to meet Joe for the first time. Well, Cody as well. And well, I mean, I'd already met him, but all these other people that were in the band, Alex, who is House the Great, Peacemaker Bear, who is Russ. And then I met Anchor Bear, and I think that was it. Yeah. So, and I met some other people. I met Jason Lindgren, and, we all got to like practice a little bit. And not as much as we'd liked, but we got to practice what we could. And after that, we headed over to the festival. And there was like an interesting part of like where we had to cross this. there was like a creek or something, like a water coming through, and we're on this dirt road. And just to get to the other side, like we were in this Corolla that Cody had, because we ended up carpooling to there, and he had rented this little Corolla, and we had to go over this like thing of water, and it was like we were like, can we make it? And the guy who had been in front of us were in Joe's truck, it is Yukon or whatever Tahoe car, and they had just crossed it like that. And then we're like, how are we supposed to cross? It was kind of an intense kind of moment, but we ended up crossing it and we were fine. And then we get in and we hang out for a bit. Then we started, I think we ended up singing in the evening. Some people sang, other people sang first. There was a couple other gigs, I guess you would call them, people. And then we were up, and I did a little set before the Gravy Boat Orchestra. And it was really fun. It was tough because we didn't have a lot of time to practice. So I forgot some of the things I said I was going to do. And like, I was supposed to do something at the end of Amazing Grace that I didn't do. And I was like, oops, like I noticed it later. I'm like, oops, I forgot about that.
I mean, honestly, the fact that you guys performed at all is just incredible. Like, I mean, I'm sure it was a lot of fun. I mean, I've performed, I love performing. It's like the best feeling ever, but to do it for that group of people, I'm sure was like unreal. And I'm really super excited. I definitely hope they do it next year, because that would be like the funnest performance ever, I think.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. And Joe asked everybody in the band if they would return, and allegedly all of us said we would go back. So
nice.
Yeah. So we'll be.
And so Cody was part of your shopping story. Does that mean you guys were compatible?
Yes.
You're compatible. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
So
is he a bear?
Yeah. He doesn't have a bear name, but he's been following on for some time. And awesome. I met him through the Bertaria Times app. And Brandon sent in a letter to Owen, and he read it less than a week ago?
Yeah,
days ago.
Last Wednesday, I think it was.
Or it has been a week. Okay. Yeah, something like that. And he kind of announced it or whatever on there. But
nice.
It was kind of funny too, because I told him that I grew an inch because of his jokes, like I'm like, because of your nigga jokes, I grew an inch. And now I'm like, now you can claim that your jokes make people grow. And then I go, we all know it's God that actually does it, but he uses your jokes as instruments. And then I told the story about Sharon and Cody, and then he goes, that's so funny. He's like, how'd you guys meet? Well, there was this guy in a barn that couldn't stop saying a word, and then we just yeah, he's like, this world is so crazy. And I was like, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
How many Rogans are you now after that inch? 23.
Yeah. Oh, 23.33.
0.33.
Gotcha. Nice.
We added the 0.33.
6'5", which is hilarious. 77 inches. Yeah. So I'm like 77. Yeah. There's so many synchronicities with it. It's totally nuts. And I really have been 6'4". Like I've measured myself up to even 2018 was the last time I measured myself, because I was doing a lot of stretching and stuff, and I was just wondering if it was going to make me. And then one day, a couple months ago, I was doing some weddings, and people are like, how tall are you? And I'm like, I'm 6'4". And they're like, you got to be like 6'6". There's no way you're 6'4". And I had shoes on that were giving me a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I had a couple of people say it to me. I'm like, let me measure myself again. And I did. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm 6'5". And then I even had my dad help me with it just to make sure, because I know he would be like, objective on it, And he's like, yeah, he's like, you really are. I was like, yeah, that's hilarious.
That's so cool that you guys met through the Bertaria Times app too. Like, especially because like that, I remember I told you guys this before, I think, but your like episode, you guys had an episode on relationships that I think, if I remember right, you guys were saying it was inspired.
You were inspired to.
I was inspired by that one to write the silly game.
Yes.
But I remember it was like you guys had that episode, and then maybe a little bit before that, or maybe after, Owen had an episode where he was talking about bears meeting each other and how like guy bears have a tendency to be a little extra, like a little like, let's go move to the farm and
and have 10 kids.
Yeah, have 10
right
kids
away,
and be
like
super
now.
traditional. And that's their like pickup line or something.
Yeah.
and so like, yeah, between your guys' episode, because you guys were reflecting on like that idea too, and between like your guys' episode and that kind of idea is where I was like writing about like not complicating things too much when you first meet somebody. And so it's really cool that you met someone like in this community, especially on the Barataria Times app, because it's like, it's such a better place than like freaking Tinder or something, or whatever the people use now, because it's just the values are just there. You don't even need to like guess if they have your values. All you really need to do is find out if they can talk to you normal, not tell you let's move to a farm tomorrow.
Yeah. And
that works for some people though, you know what I mean? So
it might work for some people.
It has allegedly, but no, I hear exactly what you're saying though. Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, the stuff that we had been talking about is basically episode 6 and 6.6 is where we talked about those topics of love and dating and stuff like that. And at the time, it was just like I was just sharing my philosophy on dating, and it was about meeting people in community first and being friends with people. And maybe there's a connection there and you won't realize it right away, but there could be something there. Right. So could it be, I manifested exactly what my philosophy on dating was. And I met, I had already, by the time I talked about that, I'd already met him. I probably met him around either late 2020 or early 2021, as late as January of 2021, but maybe as early as December of 2020. So, it's almost 2 years that we've known each other just friends online, Telegram, friends in community and other chat groups and things like that. So you kind of get to know each other a little bit. And then we just clicked really, really well. And this, like Brandon was saying, the synchronicities involved in the whole thing is just crazy. Like that's what I think I might have to write a book about is all of that.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
because
that's a great
it's just
idea.
Insane.
And I even met him because of Sharon. Sharon put me in contact with him when I met Sharon because he was in my area and he had come to my house. I did like a little mini 4th of July in 2021 meetup we had like five, 6 bears came by and all hung out, and it was a really good time. And he was there for a little bit, and he was a really awesome dude. So I was excited to hear that. Like I don't think any of us were really expecting it, it just kind of happened. It was amazing.
And that was the thing too, is like, I wasn't expecting it. And it wasn't until the last minute, it wasn't until the last day. And like his goodbye was like, for me was like, okay, that wasn't like, that was a different goodbye. That wasn't like a friendly goodbye. That was more romantic. I was like, So that's what kind of like made us, like a couple of days after we got back from, is when we started talking about it on the phone. Like it wasn't like we told each other even while we were there. We were just like, he was just hinting a lot and flirting a lot with me. And I was like, well, maybe he's just a flirt. Maybe he just flirts with everybody,
Yeah,
but,
flirt with me. No,
what gives?
Oh, Jesus. Last time I invited him to my house. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that kind of reminds me of like when I met my wife. It was like literally 2 months after I was like in a period, I think it was 2018, like in October, November 2018 is the time that I remember where I was like, really like something clicked in me where I just was like, I'm a Christian. I'm going to live like the way that I've kind of come to understand is like the right way. I'm not gonna, do any of the degenerate shit anymore. Like I'm not gonna watch porn ever again. Like I something about that time is where my like come to God moment or whatever. And 2 months later, my now wife moves into my apartment complex, like 2 doors down. She has a dog. We meet at the dog park. And the way that I thought about it when we met is like, she's the type of person who like I might have met before before I had made this type of like transition. And I might have just had a conversation and moved on, like not because I wasn't romantically interested, but just because I wasn't even thinking that that was like a something to pursue, like out of a conversation at a dog park, right?
Like you're at that level where you could see the eye to eye thing with her.
Like I was ready to like let that person in when God like presented her to me, and like you kind of get that, you know, whether even like you might not have realized it until like that moment at the festival, right? Where it's just like you guys both had that eye to eye level, like you're saying. Like it's wild. I mean, when you start to see syncs, you see them just everywhere. It's crazy. And it's like, and now when I, you know, even if cause like a lot of my friends from like back home and high school and my like past life, I guess you could say, are still very, you know, I guess atheist, and they don't really, not even just atheist, but, you know, but they just don't click on the same wavelength. And whenever I want to like, you know, send the little like nugget into their plant the little nugget into their head, I'm just like 2 months before, 2 months after, right? That's not a coincidence. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Me meeting my wife 2 months after I committed to thinking that way, even if it's just a change in your own mentality, is like not a coincidence, like at all.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
But yeah, that's so cool. I'm happy for you guys. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. But on that note, why don't you just, maybe we'll close with you telling us about your wedding song, and Olive Tree Bears helping out with that and all that. Yeah.
So, you know, we had that song. I mean, that song, we played it at the wedding. I had written it sometime during the summer, and I didn't think it would even get it to me. Like, I sent it to him, and it was one of those things that it was just on the back burner until like the day before he sends it to me. And he's like, "Hey man, we're going to be able to get this into your thing." And I told him, like, when I first sent it, I was like, maybe this could be the song we dance to, like our actual, you know, wedding song. But then after a while, you know, we both suck at dancing. So we started, we needed to go to like a little coach so we didn't suck too bad. And so we didn't, because it wasn't ready in time, like we just started practicing to a different song. So I just kind of had given up on the idea of that. And I was like, maybe he'll get it back to me after, and then I could just play it for her after, and she'll, you know, appreciate it. Like it's a gift or something. But the day before he sends it to me, like the full version of it. And I'm like, literally, like I'm sitting there on my porch and she's sitting across from me, and we're just like hanging out, and this song comes on and I am just bawling. Like I had to like walk inside. I couldn't even like be around, because she would have known that like why I was reacting like that, or assumed something. And I would, because I can't keep secrets at all. Like I've adopted that mentality you're talking about, of just telling the truth all the time. And it's so bad that like I tell her, like, she's like, "I want you to surprise me with stuff sometimes." And I'm like, you don't understand how hard it is. I almost ruined my friend's engagement because of it one time. We were in like the pool, and we were like having a good time, just like hanging by the pool, drinking. And where he pulls me to the side, and he's like, bro, I just want to let you know, because you're going to be in my wedding. Like, I'm going to propose to my girl next week in San Diego. And he told her like they were going on a trip, but he wasn't going to say where. Right. And so we get back to the pool, and I'm like a little tipsy, but I'm just like I ramble a lot, and I'm not good at keeping secrets. So I was like, "So what are you guys going to do in San Diego?" And I was like, "Fuck." And luckily, like, she didn't know that they were getting engaged, right? So I didn't ruin like the surprise, but I still like fucked up really bad. So we have a good laugh about that now, but like that's kind of how I am, where it's just I even now just can't really keep secrets at all. But luckily, like the two secrets I needed to keep were, one, not crying before that song came on, and two, somehow I was able to keep the proposal a secret. So that worked. But so he sends me the song, and I just kind of called the DJ before, and I was like, "Hey, can you just sneak this song in somewhere and just say, like, you know, it's a song that Nick wants the couples to dance to or something?" And so he did, and it was like such a beautiful thing. And I mean, I am so grateful to Olive Tree. I mean, I can't even, it's been a whirlwind since we released the the sea shanty really, because like I said, I went from not really being involved to being pretty heavily involved. And I'm just so grateful to him for reaching out to me in the first place. And then for him to do something like that, I mean, that dude's my brother now. And I mean, but yeah, so.
And you're both Greek.
Yeah. So we might actually be brothers or something, but we had played it at the wedding and we were planning on releasing it on his page. And I had my other friend who was also in my wedding working on the video for it. He took a really long time to finish it. He actually didn't finish it until like a month or two ago. And Olive Tree has been kind of a little MIA. So I was like, and I was just kind of starting my streaming up a little bit more and using my YouTube channel. So I was like, maybe I'll just post it here. I'm sure he'll understand. And I kind of I let him know that I was doing that. And yeah, no, it was awesome. It's just really awesome. But everything we work on with him is awesome. I mean, the songs that he makes are just unreal.
Yeah.
So hopefully we get back to that really soon. Hopefully people can look forward to more of that. He told me recently that he would have more time now, and he was in the chat. So that's a good sign.
I saw that today. It's awesome. Yeah. So cool. So great to have you on the show and finally get to chat with you. This is the first time I think we chat kind of face to face, virtual face to face, but still.
No, yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me, man. But it was a lot of fun. Honestly, I can't believe it's been 2 hours. We definitely
more
down to do. Let's definitely do it again sometime.
2.5 exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, that
wild.
It didn't feel like it. It went by so fast.
Yeah, I think you were a great guest. I appreciate it. I mean, all our guests are great, but doesn't mean
I was particularly no. I'm just kidding. And definitely let me know. No, I'm serious too about your book. Whatever you want to help with, just send it over for sure.
Yeah, I'll send you the PDF over to you, and then you want to check it out. And then the new one, once I get it kind of organized, I might have one more chapter in me. Yeah. There's so much I want to say to the world, but I can't say it all. But I think there's one more chapter. The Wild. And one last thing I want to say to our listeners is, you're listening to these great, inspiring messages of love. And if you're a young lady or a lady that's out there and you're like, man, I wish that was me. Well, guess what? I'm still single. So hit me up or whatever. I don't know. No, I'm okay with being a wandering wizard for the rest of my life. So I'm at the point where if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, that's great too. Like the life that I've lived is, and the life that I live now is amazing. I find pleasure in the simple things, but I mean, it would be great to share it with somebody, but either way, I'm kind of just at that moment of acceptance, because I feel like there's been certain people that have came along that were, the nomad, you know what I mean? Like Gandalf, something like that. Right. So I'm ready to embrace either of those. I just kind of leave it up to the creator, right? Whatever the plan is. So,
well, that's what
and ladies,
did, right?
And ladies, he's willing to accept. He's willing to accept 9 kids. You don't have to do 10. He'll compromise.
9.5.
We'll have a little Rogan running around.
Oh God.
It comes at the right time. Like you'll find it at the right time.
Yeah, for sure. And I could see why now. There's still things that, it's crazy. It's just crazy the way this works once you trust it, It's not what you want. It's
trust the plan.
Yeah. Trust the plan. I'm still waiting for them to get those guys in the sewers, and we can get it done.
I think that's the lesson we learned from this. We're all cute-hearted now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's so funny.
Because we're trusting the plan.
Yeah, we trust the plan.
That's why it resonated with so many people, because it's true. It's just you're trusting the wrong person's plan, but it's fine.
Just trust the right plan.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Trust the only plan.
Whose plan are you trusting?
There's only one plan.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you want to add, Sharon, before we wrap this one up?
I think that's it. It's 1:44 for me.
Yeah, it's 4:44 here. All right, perfect.
Oh, wow.
Let's wrap this up. Well, thanks again, Nick. It's been amazing, and I'm very excited about it. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for all three of us. We're like a trinity of awesomeness that you can prove. No. Well, what do we say to the good? Oh, hang on. Let me run a commercial. Thank you, chat. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. You guys are awesome. Check us out at morelawsmoreproblems.com. where could people find your books? Actually, we should say that.
Yeah, so all my socials are NB Austin Books. Like my website is nbaustinbooks.com. And if you go to my website, you can find the Amazon links. Their books are all on Amazon or on the website. You'd probably be better off ordering off of Amazon just because they deliver way faster. And like if you prefer not using Amazon, you could use the website too. That was an alternative.
I have a quick question. Is Austin because you live in Austin?
So it's also my middle name. So
it is also your middle name.
Yeah.
Crazy. I had a feeling. How funny. Well,
that's funny. My dad went to school here also. So like we both went to the University of Texas and he lived here for a while. And so because I had family down here, like Texas wasn't unfamiliar to me. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I just, up and went somewhere random, but yeah, I'm named after it with my middle name and also came here and I love the city. So yeah, it's a fitting last name.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, what do we say to the good people, Sharon?
That if you're not over Sharon,
then you're totally not Karen.
That's right. So share on.
And share on and don't be a Karen. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.